Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Film Tangent Show. We're back. Thanks for your patience, guys. I know it's been a couple weeks since we released an episode. Our schedules have all been wonky. We've all been traveling the globe, but doing various activities. But we're back, everybody. We got Jack with us here as well this week.
Hey.
Don't forget to like the video, comment what you want us to watch, or ideas for special episodes too that we could do. Subscribe and hit that bell notification so that you get updated every time a video comes out. And then also go subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts as well, if you prefer to listen to us on Apple. But this week we're reviewing Hereditary. Kind of a kickoff to our Halloween season. Yeah, the horror movie season, spooky season. October's coming, and we're starting early, you know. But we're gonna do a Halloween special next week, so stay tuned for that. But in light of the spooky season, Jack, you went on a ghost tour recently.
Yeah, so I went on a ghost tour when I was in Charleston recently. It's definitely a really good experience, and it definitely prompted me to want to do so in New Orleans, the most haunted city as well in the future. But it was like 9:30 it started, and it was a walking tour. The guy that we had, I wish I had his name handy, but he did a great job, and he kind of told us at the beginning, like, you know, we could go towards like these 4 different areas from the meeting spot, and kind of go through different types of ghost stories, whether it's just kind of your typical haunted ones. Go to the Provost Jail, which I forget the figure that I told you, Jake, fresh off of that, but I mean, they estimate, I think 20,000 people died in the jail.
Damn,
and it's supposed to be, you know, a really haunted location, and it's just because there was no like plumbing. There was no like running water. There was no sanitation. Like, I mean, it was literally they just throwing people in there, and there was no, you know, facilities to use the bathroom either. So, I mean, it was literally just kind of like a cesspool. So they just, a crazy amount of people died in there. And the tour guide was like, I won't even go in it. But
damn,
he told us he did a paranormal investigation with some other tour guides that he knew, and spent the overnight with like some, you know, infrared equipment and some ghost hunting equipment, and said, you know, he saw a couple things and felt like he was almost pushed down the stairs in the dungeon. So he was like, I won't even drive by the dungeon anymore.
Holy shit.
Which is crazy. But he took a very historical approach to this ghost tour, and really was like, you know, did his research on, you know, the regular story, but also kind of like, you know, the history surrounding those incidents. Another thing that was interesting, so we walked by a couple different graveyards as well as like haunted buildings, and a lot of the graveyards were locked at night because I guess some of the, you know, they had like historical figures from like the Civil War and stuff, so that it's like a federal graveyard, so you can't really go in there, or cemetery. So they had it locked up. But the cool thing that he was showing, and he showed us 2 pictures of people that he had taken on tours, and they were taking photos, you know, at the gravestones throughout the tour. And he showed us one where it was like somebody a couple weeks ago had seen and took a picture that looked like there was a ghost in it.
Yeah.
Now, whether or not that was, you know, real, it's hard to say, but it was a gravestone of a doctor who had ended up treating a patient and gotten smallpox from doing so. Brought it back to his family, and he survived, but his kids, all of them died.
God damn.
So the legend has it that he stands over that gravestone, watching his children, because they're all buried in like a very confined like space next to each other. So that was an interesting one.
That's dark.
And I won't take a, yeah. I mean, there was just some crazy stuff that was happened on the tour. One of the other ones was, there was a hotel, and I believe it was five stories, and now it's currently stands 7 stories. And there's been reports of people, having, in the middle of the night, like people running down the halls, seeing people in, like Civil War attire inside the hotel. I believe the hotel burned down at one point, and so some people were, you know, died during that. One of the ones he told specifically that kind of stuck with me was he said a lot of there's a lot of occurrences of like people banging on the door, and this one gentleman, there was a report of him opening the door after it's been banging on and putting his hands on both sides of the door and still hearing somebody banging, like feeling somebody like banging on the door between his hands. He could feel like the vibrations. And since they added those 2 new floors, there's never been any like hauntings on those 2 floors because those didn't exist historically. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah. It's pretty wild.
It definitely, I definitely would say I'm a non-believer of ghosts, a skeptic for sure. I mean, I wouldn't say there's no possibility, but I'm highly skeptical. But that tour definitely kind of rubbed off on me a little bit and kind of got the gears turning about, like, I still don't know, but like some of this seems like, he made a good case. Yeah. But the one thing I will say at the end that kind of dinked his credibility a little bit was he was saying, like he had sleep paralysis, and that when you're in sleep paralysis, you see like a shadow people, somebody hovering over you or something like that. And he was, me too. I've had bad sleep paralysis like the past year, like probably last fall, like winter. I had it like 6 times in like a couple months.
God
it was when we were at the mountains, like in the winter with you guys, Jake. When y'all were downstairs, Jake was snoring like so fucking loud, and I was up, and I was just, no, was it?
I think that was Memorial Day weekend.
I think
wasn't
it? Yeah. You were snoring, and so I went out on the couch downstairs, and like I was laying there, and I woke up on my back with sleep paralysis, and I thought my dog was laying on my chest because it just felt like there was so much like weight on me. And then all of a sudden, like almost like an exhale, the weight just kind of like just like dispersed across me. It was very strange.
Yeah.
But like he claimed sleep paralysis was something that happens because of like the shadow people, and I was like, all right, I think we're grasping at straws there.
Yeah.
I think that's something else entirely. But what are you guys' thoughts and opinions on ghosts?
Well, I like you, I have like a small amount of skepticism, and it's fascinating going into a movie like the one that we're going to talk about, because I feel like that kind of feeds into it, where then you just kind of start looking at the corners of the room funny, so what's going on.
Yeah.
I've never had any paranormal activity like experiences. I've never seen a ghost, or like, I've never had like any kind of anything. I've met people that say that they've seen ghosts, that they've seen like a spirit and stuff like that. You always fucking meet somebody like that.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
I have a few of those. Yeah, I have a few of those.
My grandma's one of them. That's like, oh, I've seen this or seen that, or or says that she's had kind of like, like I guess like experiences. I'm not gonna doubt my grandma, especially not on on our podcast.
Yeah, but, no, the best thing
I raised my eyebrow at my grandma. I knew.
Yeah, the best thing to do, I think, is to take people at face value. I don't, and assume they're not lying. They're trying to convey an experience that they had. What do you remember any of your grandma's stories? Like what was her scariest one, if you can remember it, or her craziest?
And also before you do that, because you were talking about kind of some people saying they've seen them, some people that they haven't seen them, that kind of triggered something on that tour. Was he was saying like once you have a paranormal experience, it almost like opens a third eye to where you're able to kind of see that more now. Yeah. I thought that was interesting.
That to me is fascinating. And that also kind of gets into the movie. I will get into that BS later.
Yeah.
But but out of her stories, the only things that I can remember is just her saying like, "Oh, I think I was walking around the room and I saw like a child in the corner," stuff like that, but not anything more detailed than like, "Oh, I saw like a small person," or and that's what everybody's stories that they have. It's usually like the people that I've talked to. It's usually stuff like that. Like, oh, I woke up and like, for instance, this one lady. I think her dad had passed away, and this is like an adult woman that I was talking to, and I was maybe 15 at the time, and she was just saying that you know like a year later or something, she just walked into a room and her dad was like there, like sitting on the couch, and that they just kind of looked at each other for a bit, and then he was gone. And I was like, holy shit. And it's like, you don't really, but it's like when people tell you stuff like that, you don't really know like where it's coming from.
It's a grief hallucination.
Like,
people have those all
exactly,
the time.
Exactly, because that's what I was thinking. I was like, it could just be that you're just kind of like, this is how you're processing grief.
Yeah.
She took it as like a paranormal activity situation.
Yeah, those are like F tier stories. When people tell ones like that, where it's like, not to like be mean to your, whoever you're talking.
Bottom of the barrel.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Your grief is at the bottom.
Wait,
of the barrel.
whose story was this?
Stories.
Whose story was this that you were talking about?
It was just a lady that I knew.
Oh yeah, well fuck her. That's not your grandma. For a second,
No,
I was
it's
like
not
your grandmother.
It's not anybody worth a gram of anything.
No, yeah, like those are those are like bottom of the barrel. Those are like sleep paralysis stories. It's like, these are recognized phenomenon, like we already know, exactly where these come from. There's definitely tiers where there's some where you're like, what the hell? There's like S tier ones where you're just like, I got nothing. I can't explain that, But whether, no matter what they are, they're just anecdotes. We don't have enough information, but yeah. Yeah, I mean, I have one personal experience, but I don't think it was actually a ghost. It was just like, but I have some ones that people have told me that I can tell, but mine is like the lamest one probably, but so I'll just get that one out of the way. I think I've told this before, but like basically I was like, it was a high stress time in my life too. It was like, I was having it was like 7th grade. I was like 12 years old, and I would wake up early at like 6 a.m. to catch the bus. The bus came to my neighborhood at like 7.
Oh dude, I was when I was in middle school, it was the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I wisely started carpooling with a friend like halfway through the year. But so like, and it was like a high stress time because I was like, I had been homeschooled 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, and then I was back in school in 7th grade. So I think I was having like some stress, just like being back in school, trying to like find my place and kind of fit back in, because 3 years at that age is like 9 years now, So it was like just trying to reacclimate to everything. It was kind of like in Captain America where he like is frozen and then he kind of comes back out at like 60 years later and he's like in the modern world, like he was like frozen during World War II and then he wakes up in the 21st century. It kind of felt like that, where it was just like, what the hell? Like all of a sudden I'm like, I go from elementary school, 3rd grade, where, basically like kids are just kids and they're talking about like, freaking, I don't know, baseball and like Pokemon cards and Bionicle. And then like in 7th grade, it's like all of a sudden people are dropping racist slurs and like cursing in school and talking about sex. And it was just like, what the hell is going on? Like I was like that Mr. Krabs meme where everything's blurry around him.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I think it was kind of a high stress time, and that like OCD kind of manifests, I think, during like high stress times. And so I was having like OCD, like dark, kind of like darker thoughts, like about the supernatural and things like that, and about like horror movie characters and just shit like that. And it was around Halloween time too. And I woke up one morning, I think I had fallen asleep with the light on, and I woke up in the morning and my vision was really fuzzy. And I kind of look at my doorway. My door is wide open and it's just pitch black out beyond my doorway. And all of a sudden I kind of blink a few times and then I see basically what looks like a little girl in like a white gown covered in dirt, as if she kind of like crawled out of a grave or something, kind of walk by my room, Even at the time I was like, I don't think I saw that. You know what I mean? Like, even at the time, even at 12 years old, I didn't even freak out. I was like, I don't think that was real, you know? But I do see how some people could go and tell that story and sort of maybe want to believe it was more, or their mind goes wild and they misremember things. They get confused, you know, they get some information wrong. Like, memories can really bloom. You'd be surprised at like what you misremember too. You know, they've done studies. Like, you know, we recently had 9/11 a few weeks ago. Like, you know, and at the actual 9/11 in 2001, I mean, they've done studies on like impact event memory, and how people like don't actually, a lot of people are mistaken about where they were on 9/11 or what happened on 9/11 when they were there, and things like that. So yeah, people get confused about this shit. But one of my favorite ghost stories that I've heard was my aunt and uncle actually told this. My great aunt and my great uncle, they they lived on they basically lived on like farms their whole life, and you know, always just out in the countryside in upstate New York. And basically there was one house that they lived at where they kept hearing like a baby crying, essentially. Like, just every night they would hear this baby crying, and they didn't know where it was coming from. And I don't remember if it was like, it might have been kind of distant, like it might have been happening in like a far corner of the house, or maybe even a little bit outside the house or something. But they would just, every night, just for months, like this baby crying, you know, and couldn't figure out where it was coming from. And then one day, my uncle was in the yard, like digging, like doing some yard work, and his shovel kind of like hit something hard, and he like digs a little bit more, and then he sees this gravestone, and it's marked like, you know, October, I don't know what it was, like October 1967 till, you know, November 1967. So it was like for a baby. There's a little gravestone for a baby. And he said he basically like straightened it out, kind of like honored the grave, you know, straightened up the gravestone, maybe even put some flowers around it and stuff. And then they never heard the baby cry again. But that's the story anyway.
That's where I think some of the ghost, like, you know, encounter stuff gets interesting, where it's like where multiple people kind of, it starts lining up. Like, that tour guide said, like, you know, like one of the ghosts he saw, like the first ghost he saw was like, he thought he didn't see it. Then he talked to his like dad about it, and he's like, "Oh, I've seen it too. That's like your grandmother."
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
It's very interesting when like different stories line up, whether that's like a term of like, you know, misremembering things, or if it's like once you have kind of a couple accounts, it's interesting to try to debunk, you know, more than one account of the same thing.
Yeah, for sure. I knew a girl, I worked with a girl at Spectrum when I worked there a few years back, who when I was working in sales, she had a bunch of like ghost stories. You never know if people are just making this stuff up, or like, I know I said you should take people at face value, but sometimes it is like, okay, really? Like, I don't know. Yeah, I'm walking that back a little bit. You know, I do still believe, like, there is, on one hand, I do still think like we should be taking people at face value and trust people that they're trying to relay an experience they honestly had, but there's always going to be that part of you that's like, all right, like, are you just making shit up, you know? Like, I remember when I was a kid watching this Bigfoot documentary, and, you know, they always interview different people about like Bigfoot sightings, and there's some where it's like, okay, well, they could have seen a black bear, or maybe, you know, they could have seen just something. They could have had a stressful experience in the woods, you know? But I remember during it, like, there was this one, during the documentary, there was this one like father and daughter that live in the country, and they were interviewing them, and they were like, oh yeah, there's like a whole family of Bigfoots that live in our backyard, and like they come to the door sometimes asking for food, and they can speak English and shit. And it's just like, Okay. Like, I don't know about. Are they really? What could they really be mistaken about? You know, it's like what could really be going on? Because I don't think that's real, but you know what I mean. Like in those cases, it's kind of like it sounds like you're lying. So
Yeah.
but there is a girl who basically she said the one that I remember was like there were like two that I remember. She said one she said she grew up in a haunted house basically, and that like she said that one night she like had a sleepover with her friend, and they both kind of like woke up in the middle of the night, and her friend started speaking in like a man's voice. Like her friend was like another little girl, and she started speaking in like a man's like an old man's voice. Which I'm like The Conjuring 2 or whatever, you know. And I was like, okay, I mean, I don't know. Maybe she had a sore throat. Like, there's just all of the, there's just all these things where it's like, we have to like, there's so many other things that it could be besides a ghost, you know? And then like, she said also that like, she was playing outside with her friends one time, and her mom was like in the kitchen, and she could see them in the yard, like through the window. And she said she saw them like basically playing with like an adult that like wasn't really there or something. Which that story I'm kind of like, okay, I mean, did you see the adult? Like, I don't get it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't really remember exactly like 100% what she said, but I don't know, man. So it's hard to place a lot of these. We'll never know.
It is. I don't know if you remember this. You remember like when people at our school had a thing, like they were like, oh, there's like a, you know, they shared like a video of like somebody like on a fucking like what is it like
that swing. Yeah.
But it's like what is this? You know, even then I remember thinking like what is this? Like this could just be anybody. Like this could be like somebody from here that went on there just trying to like spook everybody, and somebody took a video of it, and now here we are. You know, it's like it's not a paranormal activity like situation.
Yeah,
you know?
I know. They were trying to act like they caught a ghost on camera. Yeah, Jack, they sent us like a video, and it was like it was at night.
And I think I have that video.
Yeah, I probably have it somewhere.
Shit, I'm gonna look it up. I'm gonna see if I have it. If I have it, I'll send it to you boys.
It was somewhere on. It was like somewhere on campus. It was at night. I'll admit, like the video is it's like mildly creepy, I guess. And like way in the shadows, you can kind of see. You can't even see
just because of how fast that girl was like swinging on that thing.
That is true. It must have been a very lightweight person, because that was like it was like a child was
swinging like back and forth.
Yeah, it was like 1.5 speed basically. It looked like, but yeah, it was like you couldn't even see you could only see the swing. It was so dark that you could only see the swing when it swung outward. And then it would just disappear into the darkness and then swing outward again, you know. And you could only see like the bottom half of the person, maybe. But again, it's like, what are we looking at? Like, what is this? It doesn't prove anything, you know. And like you were talking about, Jack, you know, with like the sleep paralysis stories, those are weak, like you said. I mean, that's grasping at straws. I mean, it's like, you know, these are known phenomenon. I will say the chest thing, that's interesting. Like feeling like something is sitting on your chest. That's where that there's like an old painting that someone painted of like someone in bed with like a demon sitting on their chest. Because that's what people thought it was. They thought it was like an actual demon that would like, you know, come and just sit on you.
I mean, that's what it felt like. It was literally, I mean, it wasn't a little bit of weight. It was like a pretty substantial amount to where I was like, oh, something's like, and I was kind of just like looking up. I was like, oh, something's on my chest. And I kind of like couldn't move my neck or anything, but I moved my eyes down and there's nothing there.
Yeah.
It's just like,
yeah, it's freaky.
Weird sensation.
Did you say that you've been like struggling with it lately, like more?
It was, I haven't had it, you know, knock on wood, in a couple months, but it was like, I don't know, it seemed like it happened a couple times, like in a, you know, the span of a month. And then, I mean, I was struggling with it. I had I one of the times I was here at the house by myself, and I heard someone just banging on the front door, dude. and I was like looking over to my nightstand, just like, trying to like, I heard trying to wiggle your toes as a way to get out of it.
Yeah, yeah.
Didn't
Oh,
do
dude,
shit
I
for
did
me.
that.
But I saw my phone and I was just like, I just need to get to my phone to call 911. And like, I couldn't move, and I was just stuck there and just heard just banging. And then I had another time where I had my door open in my bedroom, man, and it was open, and I was like, same thing. I was, sitting in my bed, like couldn't move, and I
Yeah.
looked, and I could have sworn I saw somebody like walk past the door, just like boom, just walk right by.
Yeah.
And I wasn't able to. It was really dark, so I wasn't really able to see like a lot of details. But I like in that moment, I was like, I got freaked out, obviously, just like a nervous system response to it. But I knew kind of, I was like, that's a hallucination. Like that's not real. Like,
Yeah.
that was the one thing that helped me, was like, if I had our dog Oxford and he's not moving, like he would be the first one up if like something like that happened.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that was kind of like a fail safe to tell me like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm hearing shit or I'm seeing shit, or like the alarm's on and like somebody's walking past my door. Like that shit is not real. Like, so,
Yeah. Yeah.
but yeah, I struggled with it, but it has not
Did
been
you-
a thing for a while, and hopefully
Okay.
stays that
Did
way.
you struggle with it like before then, like before you had those like recent episodes?
No, I'd maybe had it like 1 or 2 times in my life, and then all of a sudden it was like, I don't know if it was stress or what it was.
Because
but
that's
it's
what I
just like a
that's what I wanted
flare-up
to
of
ask you.
just,
Is like, why could you attribute that to just kind of like coming up and then going? Because I mean, Jake knows this. Like, I had a period
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about
of
that.
time. Like, yeah, dude, I there was a period of time, man, where like it was like a 6-month period, dude. Yeah, everybody, we had a little bit of a technical break, but yeah, dude, when I was like 16, 17, I had a period of like 6 months. And it might have been even a little bit longer than that. Where I was having sleep paralysis, I would say maybe like, dude, 3 or 4 times a week.
Oh.
Like
Jeez.
it was like,
Oh.
dude, it got like really bad.
Oh.
And to the point where like going to sleep had started like making me like anxious. Like
Yeah.
I started feeling anxious at the thought of going to sleep because it was like really bad, dude. Because there were times where like, I mean, and I started like just like doing a bunch of like looking into it, like reading up a lot of information about it,
Yeah.
And to the point where I was like, this is happening to me so much that I should try to see if I can leave my body. I was like, it was to that extent, because you hear those things, and I remember, I guess we'll get into this a little bit because I guess this also has to do with like something like the movie Insidious,
Yeah.
But dude, it just kept happening to me, and it was just every time that it would happen to me, except for like the last few times where I just kind of got a handle of it. Every time that it would happen to me, it would be such like my heart would just accelerate. Like I would just be like, God, please get me out of this, get me out of this, get me out of this. Because it's like you're just lying there in your bed. Like for me, I would just be lying on my bed, completely unable to move. And sometimes sometimes I wouldn't be able to open my eyes,
Oh,
like,
I had not had that before.
dude,
That's
and
insane.
that adds like a whole different level to it.
That's
'Cause
even
at
worse,
least-
man.
At least when you can open your eyes, you can kind of make sense of things a little bit, even if you start having kind of hallucinations. And I had hallucinations, like the times that I would have sleep paralysis and I could open my eyes, I just would see like something that I can only describe as like a woman like dressed in black, just this kind of like
Oof.
foggy figure of somebody in a dress, And I think that's also where all those like, the woman in black or like the lady from the Insidious movies, I feel like that's where that comes from because that's like a common thing.
Yeah.
It's just like something where your brain creates this like black pattern that just looks like somebody in a black dress. And I would see that, but dude, the worst was just like eyes closed. I can't move my body. I can't open my eyes because then the fight for me would just be of like trying to open my eyes, just like trying forcefully to open them. Because dude, when you have your eyes closed like that, you imagine anything, and it always felt to me like when I had my eyes closed like that, it always felt to me like there was something next to me, or something on me, or something like in front of my face.
Yeah.
So it would just be this like completely just kind of like powerless feeling, and just feeling like there was something there that I couldn't see. I couldn't put my hands on it, and I would just again, by the latest stages of it, I started just kind of trying to, let me see if I can try to move something, a finger or something. Because then once I was able to get something going, then my body would kind of be like, okay, this guy's awake, like this guy's brain is awake and trying to do something. Dude, but those were like the most terrifying times for me because it was like, again, just so uncomfortable, And I would actually be like grateful the times that my mom would come and just wake me up in the mornings because she would just kind of like shake me or something, and I would be like, I'm awake. This is a day that I don't wake up on my own with my body just being unable to do anything. Dude, that was terrible. And I think at that time I was dealing with a lot of kind of anxiety and stress.
Yeah, that's where it comes from.
School, like I was a senior in high school at the time, and just kind of like, life, what are the next steps? How can I figure this out? And I was really stressed out because I had a lot of things like in front of me, because at the time I was living in the Dominican Republic. That's where I'm from. For those listening who don't know. And I knew that I wanted to come back to the States and that I wanted to go to college, and I feel like I was just like dealing with a lot of stress at that time. And dude, it was just a terrible period of time.
That really sucks, man.
It was so weird time.
Yeah, I think like the thing that you were talking about with like your heart racing, that's probably the worst part about it is when you can just feel like, I mean, your heart's like you just ran a 40-yard dash. Like, I mean, it's just like beating out your chest. I mean, that's the worst feeling ever when you feel like you can't move.
Yeah,
I can't fathom the eyes closed part.
Oh no, dude, that's the worst. Because then with the eyes closed part, it would just be this like thought in capital letters.
Yeah.
It's like if you put something on the screen and it takes up the whole page of like, and it was just like, there's something next to me.
Yeah.
Something next to me. There's something next to me. There's something next to me. And just kind of freaking the fuck out and just being, God, please, just like in my head being like, please help me. It's like, what can I do? Like, dude, man, I haven't had like sleep paralysis. Now, I think in like 7, 8 years. And I thank God every day, dude, about that shit because that's rough, bro.
Yeah.
That shit was rough, man.
Yeah, it's awful. I've only had it once. It was like 8 years ago. It was in our dorm, and I
remember it was like that time they were like,
Yeah. It was during the day though. I don't know if it's at the time you're thinking of. That time I just had a nightmare, but
okay. Oh no, I think there was another time. Yeah, go ahead and tell me.
Yeah. It was like at the beginning of the school year. But yeah, I just like I had basically pulled an all-nighter like the night before, and then it stayed up all day. And so then I went to I slept fine though that night, but then the next day I took a nap during the day. And that's when it happened. I like woke up and I couldn't move for like it was like 10 seconds though. And I was staring. I was looking right at you, like you were just at your desk, like on your computer, and then I just went like, "Oh!" Yeah, it's awful. I don't think I've had like little tiny like, like 1 second experiences of it where it's like there's like a slight delay, like from when I wake up. Usually, if I'm like willing myself out of a nightmare or something. Like a nightmare where I'm back with my ex, for example, then I'll like force myself, I'll kind of like pull myself out of the nightmare. And then maybe sometimes with the like a nightmare, like I'll wake up and like maybe for a half second, it's like I can't really move. And then I'll like kind of jump a little bit, but that barely counts. And that's not really that distressing at all.
Dude, it's strange with me because I think that I've had kind of like a change. Where, part of me not having sleep paralysis as much also kind of correlated with like me not having very vivid dreams anymore. Like I stopped having like vivid dreams. Like I don't have vivid dreams anymore. I actually had one like the other day for the first time like in a while, and it was a nightmare that I had, where somebody was like shooting at me. But dude, there's a correlation to this because I used to have like very vivid dreams to the point where I would feel a lot of the time I would feel like, dude, it was to this extent. Like I would wake up, like let's say I was having like a dream, right? And in the dream I was like riding a dragon. I could wake up, you know, maybe go use the restroom, go back to bed, and just go back to that dream
Yeah, yeah.
as if nothing happened. And I was able to have. I remember that, dude. I've had dreams, and I've had experiences in the past where I've had like a level of input on my dreams. You know, where I would be like, you know, do this, do this, do this, do this. You know, then in the dream I would like do it. So I've had that. You know, I've had that. I've had like a weird level of like I am in control of some aspects of my dream, and that
Mm.
wasn't again that was in the past. And I think something with like something with the way in which I was messing with my own sleep, or maybe with the way in which I was like messing with my own brain, topped with like all the anxiety and stress I had at the time. I think that really probably led to that like strong, long, persistent like episodes of sleep paralysis. Because I was just like messing with my dreams, you know. And like I said to you guys, like you know, since I was like stuck in the sleep paralysis stages, I also then got into this thought of being like, if I was like, what if I can do something? You know, I started looking into like that whole kind of like astral meditate, like astral projection
Mm.
bullshit. And I was like, I could maybe see if I can leave my own body.
That would be insane.
Dude, I was unsuccessful. But that's the thing, because I had seen shit. I had seen shit like that, you know, where it was like movies or a TV episode of a show where it's like about, you know, the person astral projecting and like leaving their body. And my thought was, you know, at the time, and I began the movie that we're going to talk about kind of deals with this. It's like, well, what happens if you leave your own body? You know, it's like maybe something else can take your place. Maybe if there's like ghosts, like maybe, you know, it's like maybe when I'm in sleep paralysis and I see shadows, maybe they're just spirits that are inhabiting this realm, but I can only access them with my brain. It's like in this like sleep, like hallucinatory state of being, you know.
Yeah.
So it's like a lot of weird thoughts, you know, the kind of thoughts that then lead to fucking movies like Insidious and shit like that.
Insidious was a great idea with that.
Oh,
Yeah.
such a good idea. 'Cause there's got to be a lot of people that can relate to that
Oh, dude, yeah.
feeling.
Yeah.
I
You
knew
know, feeling like that out of body experience. One more question I had, Edward, because I've had this experience with sleep paralysis. Have you ever had a nested dream inside sleep paralysis? Because I had one time where I was in sleep paralysis and I fell back asleep and I was walking around and I looked at my watch to make sure I was awake, and then snap of a fingers, back in sleep paralysis on the bed.
Yes, dude, yes. And I think, and this is actually the last time I had sleep paralysis. Jake knows this.
Yeah, I remember this, dude. You
Like
told me
this is
about
the
this.
this is the very last time I had sleep paralysis. This was second year of college for us. This is the last time I had it. And I'm saying this because what you said is what was happening to me.
Was this when we were going to see the Venom movie?
Yes.
Oh, that was third year, but yeah, same
Oh
difference.
yeah, was that third year really?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so third year was the last time I had a sleep paralysis, which I think was like 5 years ago, or like 4 or 5 years ago, whatever.
Yeah. 6 now.
So, yeah, so that was the last time I had sleep paralysis. Dude, this was a situation where I went to sleep. I don't even remember like the very specifics of this dream anymore. Jake might even be able to remember this better than me. We had all agreed. This was literally like February of I think 2019. We had all agreed that we were all going to see Venom.
No, it was October.
Shit.
Venom came out in October.
Really?
Yeah.
October that year? Are you sure?
I'm 100% sure.
Dude, look it up. I want you to make sure that's the
Yeah,
case.
Venom 2018. Release date October 5th, 2018.
Okay, so that's when it was. 'Cause we went to the movie theater to see. Dude, it was this weird fucking thing where we had agreed to go see that movie, and I remember I was just like, I'm gonna go and take a nap, you know. And we were gonna see that movie like at 7 that day.
Yeah.
Like Jake and I and our former roommate James and his partner at the time, like we're all gonna go see that movie, and just out to James. I went to take like a nap, bro. I don't even remember how long this nap was, but the context of the nap was that I was in this situation where I was like lost somewhere, or I had to like be going through something, And at some point in the dream, I kept basically getting to this like stage where I was like, oh, it's really late and we have to fucking go and see Venom. Like that was always how the dream ended. And so in the dream, I would wake up, and then I was like, oh, I'm awake. And instead of being able to like do anything about it, it would just go back to this loop of being like, oh shit, but I'm in a dream. And then I would live out this dream again. And then at the end of the dream, it would be again like, oh fuck, I have to see Venom. And then I would wake up again. Dude, so it was this thing, dude,
Oh
I
my
don't,
god.
it was like this like limbo that I was stuck in where I forget like like dude, it was like one of those dreams where I woke up drenched in sweat when I was actually able to get out of it. And the whole dream, the whole time, I was like, please, please wake up, get me out of this. Like, get me out of this. And the whole dream, it was like this weird anxiety dream that would keep ending with like, I have to fucking go and see Venom and waking up and then keep and doing it and doing it and doing it. Dude, it was insane. Do you remember more specifics than that? I don't remember any more than that.
Me?
Yeah.
No. I think I remember. Yeah, you said like in the dream at one point, and what it was like maybe the fourth or fifth time you woke up, you realized like this was, like gonna keep going, and so you started in the dream like bashing your head against the floor or something like that, or something, or hammering the floor or something, or like. Yeah, it sounded awful. Like I remember it freaked me out. I was like, "Oh fuck, that sounds terrible." I hope
Dude,
that doesn't happen
terrible.
to me.
Yeah, it was terrible because it felt like I was like in a coma, where it was just like, what can I do? What can I do to get out of this?
I've heard some scary stories about that too, like coma dreams. Like I heard one where it was like this stuff is like not even fun scary. This is just like scary to me too. Like.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's something about like sleep and comas and stuff like that where it's like, this ain't fun anymore. Like telling stories about ghosts or like murderous guys with axes is like fun, but like stuff where it's like sleep paralysis or being trapped in a coma, like that to me, that's like what scares me. That's why like Freddy Krueger, that whole idea is scary, man. Cause like, the whole idea that this guy can just you have to go to sleep and this guy's going to be there. Like, dude, that shit is scary, man.
Yeah, that's the thing about sleep and like dreams and stuff is like, I mean, no matter what, like you're never gonna escape it. Like you're gonna have to go to sleep. Like you're gonna have a possibility of having a dream.
Yeah.
No matter what. I think that's why it's so scary.
Yeah, no, that was a great idea. I mean, granted, they turned him into a joke after like the first movie, but it is a scary idea. And I mean, I will say like that third one. Remember that third one, Edward, when they're all stuck in it's like all these teenagers. They're all having dreams about Freddy, and they're in an asylum together.
Dream fighters or whatever.
Dream warriors. Yeah, that one's not that scary atmospherically, but the idea, just on a plot level, it's still effective because it's like, okay, you have to deal with this. Like, there's no walking away from this issue, And the idea, it is scary on an idea level of like, I think it was like 6 or 7 patients, like all in this asylum, and they were all teenagers, and they were all having like Freddy dreams, and they had to like, it's a really good plot, Jack, actually, because then they have to, the survivor from the first movie comes to the asylum because she remembers Freddy. And she helps them sort of like group together and like enter each other's dreams to help to like fight Freddy, essentially. So it's actually it's a great concept, and that one also has one of the best kills, the freaking marionette kill. Do you remember that, Edward?
I don't remember that, dude.
It's where like, so basically this kid, one of the patients, he's like asleep. He falls asleep, and then like the camera pans over to this like dollhouse in the corner or something, and there's a marionette puppet, and the puppet like it's like they do like claymation too, which it like looks pretty.
Ah, shit, that's right. Yeah. Now I remember.
The puppet kind of like morphs into a little claymation Freddy, and it like cuts itself down, and then he sort of like grows over the bed, and then he like cut gashes down the kid's like arms and his legs, and he pulls his veins out, and then he controls him like a marionette puppet, and like he puppeteers him over to the window and like makes him jump out, and then it looks like he committed the S word.
That That's badass. That's a badass skill right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude.
That's definitely like the scariest part of that movie, probably. That part was freaky. But
Damn.
yeah. I have some well, actually, let's do this. Why don't we could do our recaps, maybe, and then maybe I'll maybe if we have time, there's like ghost stories here on Reddit. I could like read one of those maybe for fun. But let's do our recaps. Let's make sure we get to those.
If not, we'll do it for the next episode.
Yeah, for sure. I'll maybe I'll if we don't have time, I'll compile them for the next one too, or like maybe the one after or something. Because we'll have plenty to talk about, I'm sure, on the special between us about shit that traumatized us media-wise growing up.
Clearly, you just tapped in a little bit and got a good amount of material. So.
Yeah, right? But I can go first for a recap.
Yeah, go for it.
Well, in terms of recap, I've not been able to watch much because of the constant kind of traveling I've been doing. But I did manage to listen to some music, and I did watch one movie, which I'll get into. But I know that last time in my alphabetical listening to, I got to Knocked Loose. You Won't Go Before You're Supposed To, which is a metal album. Great metal album. We talked about it last week. Then I listened to the Koreatown Oddity. Have any of you both heard about this guy?
No.
He is a rapper, hip hop artist. From 2020, this is an album from 2020 called Little Dominique's Nosebleed. I'll show you guys the picture for it. Can you guys see that?
Yeah. That's crazy. Huh.
Yeah, it says when I was a little kid, I was in 2 serious car accidents that would change the rest of my life. This is a 16 songs, 57-minute album that I can only describe as a combination of kind of a little bit more of like abstract hip hop, meaning like Danny Brown. He has a little bit of that Danny Brown delivery to him, so that's like a clear influence. And then if you marry that with like, if you marry kind of that Danny Brown abstract hip hop with a little bit of MF Doom kind of like, not delivery, but production execution of the kind of beats that he's choosing, and of the skits, and of kind of like that classic like Doom sound that he puts in his albums or Sourface albums, where there'll be like a television skit or like something like that.
Something from a cartoon, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. So something like that in the stories. Great delivery, man, and like really great storyteller, this guy, with how he's able to kind of tell you his experiences growing up in Koreatown, the accidents that he had as a kid that really impacted him and his health, and the way that he's been able to kind of live since then, and also the experiences that he had just like with the kind of parents that he had and the kind of like people that grew up where he was growing up. Dude, really good, I have to say. I don't even remember how I found this out. I think that I follow Frank Ocean on social media. I think that in a random just social media post that he made, he just kind of put a screenshot of this. And I was like, this looks interesting. And then I checked it out, or I added it to my albums, and now I checked it out 4 years later. And it's really good. I really recommend it. If you're a fan of just abstract hip hop, and if you're a fan of like just storytelling in hip hop, again, guys like Danny Brown or guys like Ka, or guys like Sourface, I recommend this guy. I thought he was pretty good. I really enjoyed this record.
Say his name one time. Say his name one more time.
His name is the Koreatown Oddity.
Gotcha.
I got it on my Spotify. I got his little playlist.
Yeah, and the album is Little Dominique's Nosebleed. If you just want to give this a shot, and like, you know, if you don't want to add any music and you just want to listen to one song, there's a song called Weed in LA.
Okay.
That's number one.
Listen to that song, and if you like what you hear, listen to the album. But he's dope. I really liked it.
Nice, man.
And then, staying at the case, I went a little bit backwards. I went back to the Kings, and I listened to an album by, I don't know if you guys have heard of these guys, King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah. So I've wanted to listen to King Gizzard for a long time. Let me see since when, because there's an album that they released specifically where I kind of piqued my interest. Let me see, where is it at? Shit, I can't even find it. It's an old ass fucking album. Who cares? Oh, here it is. It's an album called Nonagon Infinite 2016, but that's not the album that I listened to. I listened to their latest album just kind of randomly. They have an album that came out this year on August 9th of this year, and the name of the album is Flight B741. And the reason why I listened to this was because I was flying. So I was like, I'm flying. They just released an album, called Flight, B741. I was going to listen to that. This is my first album listening to them. On Apple Music right now, all of the songs from this album are their top songs, because this is just what people are listening to right now from them. I don't really recommend it. Like, it's not what I was expecting from King Gizzard. I know that this is not the hits. They have albums that are like really highly rated and respected. I don't know what the reception for this is, so I can't say like what the critical reception has been, because I've not looked into it. What I do have to say is that this album specifically is a throwback. Like, this is a throwback to like 60s, 70s, like road trip, like classic rock. In the sense of like, this is the kind of fucking rock music that you would see in a movie like Easy Rider, Like, this is like, I'm on a road trip, I'm on a bike, I'm just listening to rock music that's kind of in the background, but if I tune into it, it sounds like, oh shit, I'm gonna drive and I'm listening to rock music. So it's just kind of that, it's road rock. But to me, these 10 songs ended up feeling highly unessential and really forgettable. I listened to this album like on the way to where I was going and on the way back, and it failed to make an impression either way. Then I listened to it on the way home from the airport, and it failed to make an impression. So I just deleted it. So it's not an album that I have on my albums list anymore. Like, it really just failed to make an impression on me. It just felt highly unessential listening. I couldn't tell you that any given song really made an impact on me. If you like road rock, if you like kind of like 60s, 70s rock revival, maybe take a shot at it. Because the one thing that I can say is that it's clearly really well made. These guys are very talented. But I'm going to check out one of their bigger hits, like albums, later on, and then probably tell you what I actually think about them. But having listened to their very last album just because it was topical to my experience was not it, because it was not good. And then finally, I got into the L's. I'll go back to the case for King Gizzard, but I'm in the L's now. And as I started with the L's, I started with Miss Lana Del Rey, and I'm going through her music. And in going through Miss Lana Del Rey's music, I skipped the first 3 albums because I was not interested. I've heard like a lot of kind of like the hits of the first 3 albums. I just didn't really want to go deep into, I guess, like what you could say is the album experience of those first 3. So I skipped to the 4th, specifically because the 4th is also the one like right before what has been like her big kind of critical renaissance, where since before Norman fucking Rockwell, everything's kind of gone up from there. So I was just like, okay, I'm just gonna listen to the one like right before that, and then just see kind of what I get from that, And honestly, it was just kind of a mixed bag of pop songs and like, R&B songs. Like, it was really just a mixed bag, where it felt like there was like a half of it that was good and there was a half of it that was bad. And even in the half of it that was good, there was like a lot of kind of stuff that I was like, I'm not really vibing with this. So that's ultimately like what it ended up panning out to be. So nothing special. Again, another album that just kind of deleted off of my albums list. And then finally, I'll stay in the L's and I'll get through that discography. I watched a movie, but what's the name of that movie? Fuck. It was a Jason Statham movie that I watched, but I'm like forgetting. It's like the only movie that I've seen in the past 2 weeks, and I think that's why I'm forgetting that I watched it or what the name of it was.
Jason Statham.
Yeah, dude, it was actually like a movie. I don't know if you heard about this. It was a movie with
the Beekeeper.
No, it was
Oh.
with James Franco.
James Franco, that creep that was perving a few years ago got me
Yeah.
too.
It was like during the time that he had that renaissance where he was like in a bunch of movies from what was that movie? Fuck. He was in a bunch of
Disaster
movies.
artist.
Not Disaster Artist. Like the one movie that he got nominated for an Oscar for that he gets stuck somewhere. 24 Hours.
Okay.
Yeah, it was like during that time.
Okay.
The name of the movie is Safe House. I think with Jason Statham. It was alright. It was just like like a fun action movie. Kind of fails to deliver in some promises. Forgets a handful of the plot points as it goes, and just kind of focuses more on like this is the action and the thrill element of it. But it was still fun. If you like Jason Statham, go watch it. It's a fun Jason Statham movie.
I feel like he's kind of definitely the same type of character in every movie that he's
Oh, for
in.
sure.
Yeah.
But in a way, like like a that's kind of like something that like if you like it, you're gonna like the movie, so it could be a
Yeah.
good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very reliable.
Yeah, no, he is. He is. He's very reliable in the fact that he just plays a type, and the type is the bold, the tough guy.
Kind of like Adam Sandler has his own, like he plays the same character, but it's like if you like Adam Sandler, you probably like the movie.
Yeah.
I mean, very different the way that they, their character is, but
Yeah. I think shampoo is better. I think conditioner is better.
But yeah, that's it for my recap. I'll see if I sneak in more movies in the future.
Nice.
As it always goes.
Jack?
Music-wise, we'll start off with music like we did on the other end here with Edward, but I've been listening to a lot of Ken Carson this past few weeks. Yeah. I like a couple. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I've heard nothing but bad things.
You don't like him? You don't like Ken Carson?
I've not heard his music. Everybody I've talked to that listened to him, they'll be like, oh, it's not good.
It's very reliable, like just rage music,
Exactly. It's rage music, and I've a Great Chaos is what I've listened to mostly, which is an album that came out in 2023. I like a couple of the songs. It's like Jake said, it's reliable. Like I play it in my car, that shit bumps. Like I'm rolling in my car, shaking all over the place. Like that. If I'm looking for like that type of fix, like that slides into a good niche for me. So I've really enjoyed listening to some of his music. Some of his beats, I think it's the beats. Like some of the beats are very just like interesting. Got very, I don't know. Some of them kind of give me like a retro vibe. Like some of them kind of give me almost like a Sonic type beat. Like kind of some sounds like similar to like Sonic or like
Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yeah. I don't know why. Some of that type like shit going in the background, like the main loop. I don't know. That's just the vibe that it gives me. But I've been really enjoying listening to A Great Chaos and starting to look into a couple more albums. So, contrary to your opinion, I like them.
Not my opinion, dude. I've not listened to I think I've listened to maybe
listened to.
I think I've listened to like one of his songs, and I liked it. The one song, I think I have like one of his songs like in one of my playlists. Yeah. But I've not given him like an actual chance. Just because I haven't much positive.
It's very, very. I would say it's probably very narrow, where it's like you don't really see him step out. Like he does one thing, the rage music, and he does it like consistently, like Jake said.
Yeah.
Other than that, TV wise, finished up watching Overlord for the second time. I think I'm gonna maybe found some of the light novels, the EPUBs. So I'm gonna read those just for more context because I really like that show. But probably taking a little break from anime. I have a couple regular TV shows that I want to watch that have been in the queue. I want to check out The Rings of Power that's on Amazon. I want to check out Ted Lasso, which has been in the queue for me for a while, and I've just heard nothing but good things about that show.
I've heard nothing but good things about that show.
Yeah, so that's
my parents really like that one. Ex-Marine, I think.
I was going to say, I don't remember if it was Marines. But yeah, he was the ex-Marine. He's biking with like $30K in cash on him to go post bail for his cousin, who his cousin is basically testified in a court case and is kind of witness security, I think, like a protected witness, and got relocated. And the cops pull him over and basically take the money and say, like, we think this is drug money, so we're just going to take it, and there's nothing you can do about it, basically. And they have like the law, by the book, like they're able to detain that money if they think it can be, drug money. And like they basically are like, just give up on it, because if you try to get this money back, we're going to just draw the court case out, and you're going to be double. So he finds himself in the pit, kind of goes through a, action retribution scenario, but it does a really good job of building up characters. I think a lot of action movies, sometimes they get out ahead of themselves with it being all action. I think it did a really good job of kind of character building, world building, and then really the climax and action that comes throughout the movie is a higher value because of it.
Yeah, it's basically like a remake of First Blood, the first Rambo movie, but there's like extra plot elements essentially. But it's like the same thing. There's like more of a race overtone as well, in this one. Like it's a little more modern in that sense. There's, addressing the, all of that stuff.
You also watched that over the past few weeks?
Yeah, I did. I watched it on the plane. When I was flying last week. And yeah, I thought it was, I agree with Jack. Like it's pretty good. I thought it was like shoddy in some places. I can't remember which part of the movie I can't remember if it was the third act or the second act that kind of took a shit for me. I can't remember, but I thought it was a great setup, and I thought like the climax was pretty good. I thought the ending felt a little rushed and maybe unsatisfying. Movies these days have an ending problem. Like people, I don't think we know how to end movies anymore. They're never as satisfying as they used to be.
You know who made that movie, dude?
No, I don't. I forget who.
The same guy that made the movie Green Room and Blue Ruin.
Yeah, that's right.
Jeremy Saulnier.
Yeah, I like Green Room. I did not like Blue Ruin, but I like Green Room.
Yeah, I think we watched Blue Ruin together. I didn't like the movie either.
No, the movie stinks. But Green Room's great.
But honestly, it was a very interesting, like, also take on an action movie where, like, he uses non-lethal means the whole time because he's fighting against the cops. So it's like you can't really like kill the cops, like that would be like that would be a very good message for people, but also like for him it wouldn't be a good outcome. There's a couple cool scenes where like he has a clip 9mm clip, and he literally just spits out all the bullets with his hand. One time he gets like a shotgun from a policeman, and he just like pump shotties all the rounds out of it and throws it at a guy. So I thought it was some like interesting like tactical shots of him like disarming weapons basically so that they can't be used against them and de-escalating it.
Yeah, and that was
kind of cool. I've never seen that.
Yeah, you're right, and that keeps like the moral high ground for that character, and also like that is also I can't remember the word I'm looking for, but that's like from First Blood as well, because he doesn't kill anybody in the first Rambo movie. Like when people picture Rambo, they picture like the freaking red bandana and him just like like fucking blowing shit up and everything. But the first movie, dude, he doesn't kill anybody in that movie. I checked actually after watching this one. I looked up like, does Rambo kill anyone in the first movie? He doesn't kill anyone. I thought he killed one or two people in that one, but he doesn't.
It would make sense if it was First Blood. He'd have one.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, this movie, it was like essentially a remake of First Blood, but just with more like timely commentary on race, and then like some additional plot elements. Like you have that lawyer side character. I think that was maybe like the weak point of this movie. Like I think this movie did a little bit of meandering with that stuff.
Yeah.
I think they could have cut to the chase a little more and given us a little bit more of the good stuff the way First Blood did. But I'll take it. Like it was entertaining.
And I think it was pretty like moderate as well. Like they even showed like, even though the police were corrupt, they go into like well, they're corrupt because like they're no longer getting funding, and like
Yeah.
they're no longer going to have a police force if they don't find a way to get the cash to fund it. So like they're corrupt for a reason.
Mhm.
Not saying that's the right thing to do, but it like gives a little more context, where it's like it's kind of a shitty situation for everybody.
Yeah. And Don Johnson's great as always. He was the police captain.
Oh, yeah.
Literally until I watched Knives Out this past weekend, I had never seen Don Johnson in a non-law enforcement role like once until Knives Out. Like literally, like Dragged Across Concrete. He's a police captain.
Yeah.
You know, he played a policeman in what was it? Miami Vice.
Miami Vice. Yeah.
Like Brawl in Cell Block 99, he's a cop. Freaking, I can't remember what that movie was with Michael C. Hall, who played Dexter, but he was a cop in that movie, or like an ex-cop or something. Like literally, the dude is always a cop. Yeah. And then I saw him in Knives Out, and I was like, oh fuck, Don Johnson's not a cop. But anyway, sorry. Go ahead, Jack.
Oh, that was really all I think I had for recap. But also, I think the protagonist, Aaron Pierre, also a great casting for that role.
Yeah,
I really liked him as the main character in that film. But
yeah, man,
I think that's the majority of what I've had.
Did we talk about Wukong as well?
Oh no, that was the big one. Okay,
oh,
I can't
boy.
believe I forgot about that.
Dude, so Jack and I have been playing that
Black
together.
Black Myth Wukong, huh?
Yeah, man.
Black Myth Wukong. I've probably about halfway through the game now, man. But like, you know, going into some of these games, I mean, the hype train for a lot of games coming out is just huge, and
there's
like people are just
huge
like,
hype for that game. I've been watching playthroughs.
Oh yeah, and I mean, it's just like everybody's like, this is the shit, this is the best game. So I walk into a game like that trying to like manage expectations and be like, okay, like Elden Ring's really like, you know, probably my standard for like a game, and this is a smaller developer. We really haven't seen
Chinese,
much,
right?
Yeah, from very small. I mean, they're a very small company, so it's like I was a little skeptical going in on, you know, whether the performance would hold up. Luckily, I'm on PC, so I have some more, you know, resources to play the game, and I've had no performance issues whatsoever. And I'm playing on like max graphics with like, you know, 120 frames, like, you know, which is perfect for what I'm trying to do. But man, the character design, the world, I mean, the game is beautiful, man. Like it really is beautiful. Yeah. All of the bosses that I've fought are, I mean, they have a wide range of different like elements, different attacks. Some of the bosses that I've fought, like, you know, I'll fight like 4 or 5 times, and then I'll, you know, see moves I've never seen before. Like their movesets can be very like deep, and like, you know, get the boss, you know, health down to halfway, which is typical. You kind of see, you know, change almost like a second phase of a bunch of different stuff. So I mean, I found the combat to be very engaging. I mean, it's the little things that it just feels so fluid. The combos that you're able to kind of use with his staff, you can get into some crazy combos and upgrade some skill trees to where it's like, you know, an Elden Ring kind of like, or Souls like games. Sometimes you light attack and then you dodge and then light attack again. Where this is like you can chain like 4 or 5.
So this is more along the lines of like the God of War, where you keep unlocking tiers of like, you know, press square, then R1, L1, L2, and then you can do a bunch of bullshit.
Well, he has like different powers that you can use. So like there's different things. Like the first one you learn is like an immobilize. So you can immobilize your enemy. Like, so if they're about to hit you, you can hit this like immobilize, and they're just stuck there. You can get a couple combos off from them. Depending on how powerful they are, it can range. There's a couple other ones. There's like one that I use, Rock Solid, where you kind of turn to steel, and you can like parry their attack if you time it well. So there's like a bunch of different powers that keeps it interesting. There's like kind of like, I wouldn't say like Ashes of War like Elden Ring, but like you kind of summon like some of the bosses that you defeat. You can collect their like spiritual energy and like summon them to help you fight, like, you know, give you certain effects against certain bosses. But I mean, some of the skill trees that you can upgrade, like you're able to continue combos after dodging. And like the cool thing that they have that I really is like a small detail, but I think is really cool, is like if you do like a perfectly timed dodge, he leaves like an after image like back from where he dodged.
Yeah,
it's just cool. Like it really is. And so far, I mean, that game, I don't want to put it at a 10 out of 10 because I haven't completed it, but it's I mean it's a 9 for me.
It's
Yeah.
I've
addictive, dude.
really enjoyed playing it, and I mean the only thing
That's
I will
dope,
say,
dude. It's on my list to play for sure.
yeah, I would highly recommend. The only thing I would say is it's not quite as like as big of like an open world as some of the other games that we have seen. It doesn't take away from it for me because it's very like there's plenty of spaces to explore and things to do. So it's not like it's not tiny, but there's definitely some cases where you'll wander off and you'll hit an invisible wall and you'll be like, oh, I can't really like go anywhere from there. So it's like, but it does what it does very well, and I can't wait to finish it up and get through it. But 9 out of 10 for me. So that's I've been dying to talk about it because I think you would really like it, Edward.
Yeah, I'll do that. Dude, I know. I've been watching playthroughs. Like, I'm gonna play that game eventually.
Oh yeah, and I brought it downstairs with Jake. We put it up on the TV, and we ran this one like almost Minotaur-looking boss that had these 2 lightning hammers, dude. Oh my god!
Took us like 30 times before.
Literally took like 30, 40 attempts to kill this guy. I mean, it was
really holy
insane.
shit.
Yeah, he was difficult, and he was like not one of the more difficult bosses either. So
that was a great night, dude. We just got some pizzas and we're like playing this game for a few hours, just like screaming at the television at the TV. Like,
I was like standing up in front of it, like when I beat him, like I was literally like 1 HP and he was like 1 HP and he's like spamming these moves and I'm like dodge, dodge, dodge. I literally clenched so hard and Jake's like behind me, just like, oh my god.
Yeah. Oh,
and
dude.
Finally got the win and we're like jumping in the air like, holy shit.
Those fucking moments are the shit, dude. Those video game moments where you finally defeat a boss are the fucking shit.
Yeah.
That's
what
I find
fun.
rewarding about those like Souls-like games. It's like it has a high degree of difficulty and it can be really frustrating, but the reward is a really good feeling.
Yeah, dude, it's so cathartic.
Yeah, and I find that with Wukong is like it feels rewarding to beat the bosses.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't know. You beat them all, but we I did my best, dude. The one that was really frustrating me was that giant white wolf thing, man. That freaking pissed me off, dude. But yeah, it's fun, man. It's addictive. Like, you know, you just want to keep going and trying to beat them. But yeah. Well, for me, one thing I wanted to mention was this ties into what we were talking about before, because like I've been now that we're getting close to the Halloween season, like, you know, I mentioned it before, I start early whenever it starts to feel remotely like fall in September. I just start, you know, firing up the Halloween stuff. And I've been rewatching a little bit of like the classic Scooby-Doo show. Like I'll put it on like when I'm falling asleep or like in the background while I'm writing or something. And I mean, I love the old Scooby-Doo episodes, that classic series. And one thing I gotta say, dude, is like I thought of it when we were talking about like sleep paralysis and like the whole idea of like someone walking quickly like past a room or something, you know. And there's an episode of Scooby-Doo, of the classic Scooby-Doo show, that's actually there's like a part of it that creeps me the hell out. Like I think it's called. It's like where they're at let me know if this sounds familiar to you guys. They're at an amusement park and it's no one else is there. The gang is just like using it. I can't remember why they're there, but so already it's kind of creepy because it's like a liminal space, you know? So it's like a place where, you know, there's supposed to be people, but there's no one there. And there's like a robot there that's like still operating the park or something. And there's like a part where the robot is like walking in the background like really quickly, like between buildings, just like at a it's like very uncanny because like he's walking like faster than a normal human can walk, just like like really fast, and he just keeps like zipping across like this alleyway. And it's freaking spooky. Like that part actually freaked me out. Didn't think I would get freaked out by a Scooby-Doo moment at this age, but gotta hand it. That classic Scooby-Doo show had some spooky moments. But
yeah.
Oh yeah, that's that shit.
Yeah.
Scooby-Doo, where are you?
If anyone it's the robot. It's like in the opening Scooby-Doo theme song, there's that part where Scooby's like running with a barrel on his head.
Yes,
and then he
I
runs
remember
into something, and when he looks up, it's like that robot is standing there.
Yeah.
It's that villain.
Scooby had its creepiness, man, and I had the
Yeah.
game for GameCube. Like I had the Scooby-Doo game for GameCube, which is also pretty fun and also kind of scary.
I had that too. That for PS2.
Yeah.
It's the one where they're like at the mansion, right? I think it's called Night of 100 Frights or something like that.
Let me see. Let me look at it.
It's like they're at like a manor, and like it's like all this classic Scooby-Doo villains are in it.
Yes.
Yeah. That was a creepy game. It was also hard. I don't know. Like
it was also really hard. It was really hard.
I could never beat that game. Like I was like, granted, I was like 5 or 6, but I got stuck. I never finished that game.
I don't think I ever finished that game either. We didn't finish it.
No,
but it was fun. It was a really fun game.
It was kind of creepy too, because you were just like Scooby-Doo, just all by yourself, like running through, and the gang's just missing, you know.
Yep.
And it was like such a relief when you'd find a member of the gang. Yeah. It was such a relief too when you ran into one of them. But yeah, that classic Scooby-Doo series, like nothing compares, because like there were some episodes of What's New Scooby-Doo, like when I was a kid, there was one episode that freaked me out. It was the one with the mummy.
Mm-hmm.
Where the mummy has like these glowing purple eyes and this mouth full of like, you know, like crooked teeth and shit. But overall, like it just became so gimmicky. Like there's an episode where it's like, oh, there's a ghost that plays baseball, and then there's like another episode where it's like, oh, it's the roller coaster monster. When you're riding on the roller coaster, it takes the ride apart, you know, and it's like, this shit ain't spooky, you know. But in that classic Scooby-Doo show, it's like, oh, we have an episode where we're in like this abandoned shack in a swamp with like a witch and a zombie that are like somewhere in the woods, you know, or like, oh, we're in an abandoned dungeon, or we're in like a, an abandoned mansion, or like a, you know, just whatever it is, like an old farm. Like it was always like spooky, you know. And that show, the Scooby-Doo franchise, just became so gimmicky as time went on. But anyway, I'll always have a soft spot for Scooby-Doo. That's child.
I might have to watch The Witch's Ghost.
Oh yeah, that was a good one. Yeah, they had some good movies later on. I will say Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island from the 90s.
I know that's a big one for you.
Dude, that was the first movie, I think. I was like 5 or 6 when I saw that. I think that was actually the first movie that scared me. Like that at that age, that was scary, dude. That was hardcore at 5 years old, let me tell you. I remember my parents were like mad after we watched it. They were like, that was inappropriate for kids. Like that was too scary. And they're right, dude. That movie is way too scary for kids. Like that, they went too far with that, man. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Like just zombies walking around and they're real. And then the end with like the cat people, they're like werecats, and there's like a curse on the island and shit. It's like, what the hell is this? Like, Jesus, you guys write a horror movie.
Yeah, they were like, Common Sense Media did not say that this was. They said this was appropriate.
Yeah. Oh, dude, I can't believe. Yeah, I can't believe what the studio let them get away with. And I believe that the same team, or like most of the same team, made Witch's Ghost, and they were told to like tone it down for that movie. Because that one wasn't scary at all. I remember.
Yeah, they had the Hex Girls though.
Yeah, they were pretty bad. But anyway, and then okay, so movie wise, and I'm gonna keep an eye on the clock here, and then we can like kind of do our rotation one more time.
Yeah, this call has I guess like 7 minutes.
Yeah. So okay, so for movies, I watched Rebel Ridge. We talked about that. I rewatched Panic Room on the flight back.
What a great movie.
Yeah, that movie's great. The real heart of that movie is Forrest Whitaker's character, who's actually one of the antagonists.
Yeah.
That's his name, right? Forrest Whitaker.
Forrest Whitaker.
Okay, yeah. I was making sure I wasn't getting them mixed up with someone else. Forrest
Lawrence
Whitaker.
Fishburne.
No. No.
Samuel Jackson.
No. I knew that. No, there's a UFC fighter who was named Forrest something, and I was making sure I wasn't mixing the names up. But so yeah, that's a
there's
great.
There's a great YouTube video, everybody, for those wondering, where it's about a guy confusing Samuel Jackson with I think Lawrence Fishburne.
Yeah, dude, that was so embarrassing.
Samuel Jackson, bro.
Oh yeah, and then doesn't Samuel L. Jackson like bust his balls, and he's like, "Are you related to Brad Pitt?" Like or something like that.
He busts his balls. He has to let him off the hook.
That's hilarious. And then my girlfriend and I watched Ready or Not. That it's basically that I don't know if you guys have ever heard of this, but it's basically a movie where this woman marries into this family, this like really wealthy family, and then like they make her do like this wedding night ritual where it's like a game of hide and seek or something, and then she quickly realizes that they're actually like all trying to kill her essentially.
It's like a recent movie, right?
It's from it's pretty recent. I think it's 2019. So
2019.
I think I've
hearing
seen
about
it.
that
I
movie.
think I've seen it.
Yeah,
I've seen clips.
It's pretty average. I give it a 5 out of 10. Like it's average. It's nothing special, I didn't think. Yeah, I don't know what to say. Like it's average. It's suspenseful. It's kind of fun. I was never like bored, but there's also just a lot of, again, like modern movies, dude. There's just a lot of just ham-fisted, like just
a little ham.
It's just clunky. They're just clunky, dude. They're just clunky and like melodramatic and shit. And like they don't pick the music is like wonky and off in certain scenes where it doesn't feel like appropriate. It's I don't know. Modern movies suck, dude.
Movies suck.
Yeah. And then we also watched Knives Out. That was my first time seeing that. Knives Out.
I feel like your experience with that movie was just me hating it for a while.
Yeah, what'd you gave it a 5.
Yeah.
I gave it a 6. I thought it was like slightly above average. Like I was never bored. I thought the mystery was good. And I thought it was pretty clever how like it starts off as a mystery and then in the second act it turns into like a very suspenseful kind of nail biter. And then it goes back to being a mystery when you realize there's a bigger puzzle here. But overall, I didn't think it was like all that or anything. Like there's some people that geek out over this movie and are just like, this movie's brilliant. You know?
Yeah, when this movie came out, dude, at the time, people were just like, bananas over this movie. I was like, what about this movie?
Yeah.
I watched it. I gave it a 5. I was like, this is whatever.
Yeah. I remember like for 10 minutes, I couldn't figure out what Daniel Craig's accent was. Like he comes in, he's like, well, we got a mystery on our hands.
Yeah.
We got a mystery. We got to solve it. So, but I realized it was like that like high class Southern. But I think I'm just so used to him having a British accent. And then I guess I have time to talk about this real quick. Before our meeting time runs out. Of course it was a rewatch for me, but my girlfriend had never seen Psycho, so we watched Psycho on Saturday night. I mean, yeah, brilliant film. I've talked about it before. It was in my top 10 horror films on the Halloween special, so I'm not going to review it again. What was interesting was my girlfriend.
Rewatch it.
Yeah, so one thing that's interesting is like this is like how subjective horror is, you know, because like comedy is very subjective, as the Joker says, and comedy is subjective, Murray, but so is horror. And like we watched Hereditary. Me, my girlfriend, and Jack watched that together, and my girlfriend was like, "That wasn't scary." She said it wasn't scary to her at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, holy shit. I mean, wow.
I don't know. I was like, is she traumatized or some shit? She doesn't think any horror movies are scary, I swear.
But here's the thing. She thought Psycho was scary.
Thank God. That's like...
Yeah, right.
I didn't think she thought anything was scary.
I know, right? But she thought Psycho was scary. And I was like, that's really interesting to like not to find Hereditary not scary at all, but like to be freaked out by Psycho. But it just goes to show like
there's a difference to those, to I guess like the thematic of the scare, isn't it?
Yeah, and the subject matter. Yeah, I mean it's just it really is subjective. Like different shit scares different people. Different subject matter, and different subject matter scares certain people. I mean, there's people who, I mean, I know like a lot of non-religious people don't find demonic horror possession movies like scary at all. There's people who don't find the slasher stuff really scary, but they find the demonic possession movies very scary. There's certain people that aren't scared by haunted house movies at all. Like, for me, I don't know if there's like any certain subject matter that I'm like, that's never scary to me, but for me, it's a lot more of it is like execution, and like, granted, maybe just the execution for Hereditary just didn't work for my girlfriend, but yeah, I just thought that was interesting. Like, I thought it was kind of cool. Like, hey, she's, like Psycho, Alfred Hitchcock, that movie aged, it just goes to show how well it aged too. Like we were watching that and I was like, man, this movie aged so well despite being black and white, and, you know what? There was one thing on my rewatch of Psycho that actually bothered me a little bit though, that I think is kind of a weakness of that movie. I would still say that movie's a 10 out of 10.
How about a 7? That's why I want to rewatch.
Yeah, one thing that brings that movie that I think is a weakness of that movie is the ending. I think Norman Bates is like defeated really easily because it's like she walks into that room, she sees who she thinks is Norman Bates' mother, and then she realizes it's a corpse. And then she looks behind her. There's Norman Bates dressed up like his mother. He's got a knife raised. And then just the guy comes in behind him and wrestles him to the ground, wrestles the knife out of his hand, and that's it. Then he gets arrested. And I think Hitchcock could have, and then they have that whole scene after that where the psychiatrist is like explaining everything to everybody. I feel like they could have cut down that scene or not and but they should have had a scene, an additional sequence where there's more of like a cat and mouse hunt through the house, where that woman's alone in the house and Norman Bates is like, hunting after her. I just feel like he was defeated so easily, especially when you think about other slashers, and they had it's a great setup too, because it is really creepy. Like when that woman's alone in the house and then she looks out the window and she sees him like running up the stairs, and she's like, oh fuck. And she has to like go hide in the basement. I mean, that it's creepy, and they could have built off of that more, I thought, and had just like a 2-3 minute longer, like cat and mouse thing, build some extra suspense. But anyway, it's a movie from 1960. What are we going to do, but yeah. Anyway, that's just my 2 cents, but I think it is pretty much a perfect movie regardless.
I was never big into it, man. Like I watched that movie and I was like,
really?
I just kind of ended up being like, oh, it's good, classic.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm telling you. Like, I need to rewatch that movie because it never really made like a big impact on me.
Oh man, yeah. I think it's masterful. I mean, I can, I'm desensitized to it by now, but I agree with my girlfriend. It is creepy. I mean, despite being from like 1960, like being an old black and white movie, I mean, it is pretty freaking creepy at times. I would say for a movie from the 60s, it's pretty scary. I would say like the other movie from the 60s, that's pretty freaking scary, is like Night of the Living Dead. Oh, and Rosemary's Baby is pretty scary too. But yeah. Anyway, and then finally today while I was working, I just put on the classic Bela Lugosi Universal Dracula movie. I actually never saw that one before. I had seen, when I was a kid, I watched like Frankenstein, The Mummy, The Wolfman, Creature from the Black Lagoon. So all those other classic horror Universal monster movies. And I saw some of those like little sequels they made back then too. And then I've seen like, Bram Stoker's Dracula. I've seen the Hammer British version of Dracula with Christopher Lee, the guy who went on to play Count Dooku in Star Wars. But I had never seen that original Bela Lugosi one. So I threw that on the background today. I gotta say, like, the performance is great. Obviously, it's very iconic and everything, and there's a lot of great like imagery and atmosphere in that movie. But it's really boring. Like, there's It's just so boring. Like there's like no soundtrack in the movie, first of all. So the whole movie is just silent. And it feels like you're watching a play where there's like, for some reason, there's like a weird, like between every line of dialogue, there's like a 10-second pause or like a 5-second, maybe like a 5-second pause. And you could just hear the freaking like crackle of like that old timey like 1930s, noise or whatever, like that fuzziness. Yeah. That just, yeah. Yeah. And it's like, I remember halfway through, I was like, what the hell is this? This is like not aged well at all. Yeah, definitely. I think that one's like the weakest, especially when you compare it to like Bride of Frankenstein. Like Bride of Frankenstein's a freaking like classic. I mean, that's a masterpiece of like, classic black and white horror. Like that classic Dracula movie does not compare at all, I don't think. But yeah, I would say, probably the best out of those is like Bride of Frankenstein. I also really like The Wolfman. But The Wolfman came out in the 40s when they were film was a little bit more advanced by that point.
Right.
And there were more
10-year difference.
Yeah, I mean there were more advanced like editing techniques and like the soundtracks and everything.
Yeah.
But they're making another Wolfman movie too. Did you hear about that?
I haven't heard about it either.
The only thing that I keep waiting for is just the fucking new Robert Eggers movie.
Yeah, the Nosferatu movie. Yeah, that should be great. I bet that's going to be freaking awesome. But yeah, that's it. So I guess we get into.
Lee is the one that's doing the Wolfman movie.
Oh yeah. That's right. Yeah, I watched.
That makes me excited. That sounds cool.
Yeah, the teaser for it came out. I remember not being very impressed by the teaser. I guess real quick while I'm doing a recap too, I'll just throw this in real quick. Speaking of trailers, I watched the trailer for Smile 2. The first Smile movie was like fine. It was like a perfectly average horror film, I thought, with like a couple genuinely creepy moments. I really don't think it's all that. I gotta say, the trailer for Smile 2, I was like, what the hell is this? Like, every single... I was like, this isn't scary in the slightest. Like, every single shot is, like, overlit. It's like what we were talking about, Edward, where there's no use of shadow or darkness whatsoever. Mm-hmm. Every single shot of that trailer looks like a soap commercial. Like, I'm like, this is not scary at all. Why would you light a horror movie like this? Like... I'm like, this is the least scary horror trailer I think I've ever seen. So I was like disgusted after I saw that trailer. I was like, what are we doing? Like, do we not? Yeah. We've been making horror films for 100 years now. Like, we should know. Like, we should know what we're doing by now. So
you would think.
You'd think.
Dude, I am not paying a dime for that movie. Like to go see that. I'm not going to see that in theaters. Like that looks like complete garbage. But anyway.
I haven't even seen the first one, dude.
Yeah,
I haven't seen the first one either.
It's not even, it's barely worth watching. But anyway, I would say I'll shelve my disgust, but we're about to talk about the strange thing about the Johnsons. So.
That shit. Yeah, I guess we should do it this way. Well, everybody, I guess we got to this part. Jack, I guess you'll be more listening to than doing anything else for the next maybe 10 minutes. Although I don't have that much to say about this movie. We watched this week The Strange Thing About the Johnsons.
In addition to, as a companion to Hereditary, because it's the same director. Yeah,
2011, Ari Aster wrote and directed this movie. Funnily enough, after watching this, I was like, has Ari Aster made anything? And then it's like, it seems Midsommar hasn't made anything. Which I found that strange. It's like, dude, what are you doing?
No, he made Beau Was Afraid.
Oh, that's right. He made Beau Was Afraid. We just haven't watched it.
Yeah.
That's right. He did make another movie.
I don't have much of an interest. I don't have much of an interest in that one.
I went to just because it's Joaquin. Like, that is really all that, like, my interest. Like, that's really where it ends and begins. But we watched The Strange Thing About the Johnsons. And yeah, the strange thing about Johnsons is strange.
We should tell Jack what it's about to set the stage.
So this is a movie about a father and son whom in secret have a sexual relationship that goes on for what seems like a period of, who knows, like 12, 15 years or something like that.
Yeah.
Jeez.
It's a long time.
Yeah. The first scene of the movie is basically just like the son laying in bed, and he's like furiously masturbating and like with like a blanket over him, and he's holding something, and you assume, like for me, I assumed it was like a phone or something, like he's watching porn
or just like a photo of something. Yeah.
So like his dad comes in and kind of like walks in on him, and then there's like, oh shit, and like walks out, and then the dad comes back in, and is like, gives him kind of this talk like, hey, you don't need to be embarrassed. Like everybody does it. Are we cool? We're cool. Yep. Okay, cool. Well, I'll see you downstairs. Leaves. Then it's revealed that what he was masturbating to was a photo of his dad. And then it like basically cuts to this scene where the family is taking, like, the dad, the mom, and the son are taking photos, and like the mom cannot get the son to look at the camera because he just keeps staring at the dad. And then it like cuts, dude, it's so uncomfortable.
Ew.
Then it like cuts to a wedding where his son is getting married. It's like 14 years later. His son is getting married. He's like in his 20s now or something. And like then at the reception, the mom is like looking all over the place. She's like, "Where's have you seen my I forget his name, the son's name." She's like, "Have you seen him? No. Have you seen him? No." She finally like goes around to like this, like around these like bushes or whatever, and she goes up to this fence and she hears something going on, like some kissing noises, and she looks through a hole in the fence, and the dad and the son are like making out, and then the son is like starts to like blow him basically. It is the most uncomfortable thing I have ever seen in my entire life. And then like the dad is basically, it shows like the dad like writing this memoir kind of thing where he's like
called Cocoon Man.
Yeah, Cocoon Man, which is like basically just admitting everything. He writes this manuscript, and like the son finds it and then like, forces the dad to like delete it. And then there's that terrible scene in the bathroom. I don't know if you want to take over from there, Edward.
Yeah, because then, the son gets married, and, he stops the dad from being able to just kind of, confess to what's happening. And then after they do that, after like a New Year's party, the dad just kind of goes to, he tells his wife, he's like, I want to stay back and help them clean.
The son
he just kind of
tells his
wife. The son tells his wife, and he just kind of makes her leave, and she's just like, oh, okay. And so he stays back, and the dad's in the bath, like he's like just taking a bath, and he's wearing like headphones so he can't hear anything. The poor guy is just like listening to like some like self-help like stuff, and the son starts knocking on the door, and it's like locked, And then he just starts screaming, like, I thought that you and I agreed that we're not going to have locked doors in the house, The dad just can't hear anything. So he starts just, like, bashing the door until he just kicks it. Like, he just breaks the door. Like, he just kicks the door open. And then he just assaults his dad. And we don't see this. We just cut away to the mom. And the mom just kind of turns the TV really loud and just tries to pretend that it's not happening. But you can just kind of hear the dad, like, just kind of being assaulted and just kind of screaming. And then we cut back to it, and we just cut to the son, like, pulling up his pants, It's terrible.
Yeah.
All things terrible.
Yeah.
And so then the next scene after that is just him, the dad. I mean, it's like the dad just, like, sleeping and then just kind of turning to the mom and then just being unable to say anything. But at that point, it's like, he probably at that point like he knows that she knows because it was obvious what happened. And so the next day he unburies like that copy of Cocoon Man, of his like memoir, like his confession that he had like just kind of buried underneath like the tiles of the floor in his house. And as he's like leaving with it, his son is just waiting for him in the living room, and he confronts him again, and he just kind of like tries to like guilt trip him, just gaslighting the guy.
Yeah.
And so the dad just ends up like running out of the house, and he gets hit by a truck and he dies.
Wow.
And then the movie ends with like the son like puts on his dad's clothes, and he's like looking at himself in a mirror, and the mom confronts him finally, after what was like probably like a year or two of just kind of turning a blind eye to what was happening. And ultimately they just have this like physical confrontation, and she kills her own son, and the movie ends.
Yeah. Yeah,
Jesus.
It's so fucked up. Like it's one of the most fucked up things I've ever seen in my life. It's so fucking disturbing. Edward, what was your take on? I couldn't tell if like it started with like the dad basically molesting his son, or if it just started with the son, because the son makes a comment during their argument that like the dad started it, right?
I don't remember very well. Like I've read a little bit of it. I've read a little bit on it. Basically, what they were trying to do with this movie was just kind of make a movie about like an allegory for physical and sexual and emotional abuse, especially when it happens like from a person in a position of power to a child. Reverse the roles of this movie, and then it's like a movie about a dad abusing his son. But what makes this movie just kind of like so kind of like off-putting and just like crazy, is that it's the opposite. Is the son to the dad, and similarly the son has some kind of fixation, and it seems like what the movie's trying to imply was that it was like the son, and then the dad was just kind of like the victim of it, and that's kind of like the controversial part of it, right? That it's just like reversing those roles.
Yeah.
But from my understanding, they reversed those roles to kind of point out the absurdity of like something like that existing in the first place. Even if you make it so the dad is the abuser or whatever. That's what I understood that the intention of the film was, like from the filmmakers. That's also how I interpreted it, like watching it. I was like, this is clearly like an abuse thing. And it's just like so disturbing that it's like, a son like abusing their dad, which just seems like an impossibility.
Yeah.
Just because of the inherent like power dynamic there. Dude, I mean, I thought it was well made,
Yeah, I thought it was good.
It's not palatable. I wouldn't recommend anybody watch this. It's like one of those like movies that you just kind of like. It's just one of those movies that it's just like 404 not found, like a weird like deep web movie. Honestly,
yeah.
Like it's just like a weird deep web movie about something really gross and uncomfortable, portrayed in a very gross and uncomfortable way. Yeah.
Props to
Definitely
Ari Aster.
Don't feel like I missed out.
No, you're kind of lucky. I'm getting like weird like sickness even thinking about it. But like the props to Ari Aster for coming up with a more creative spin on it, because like he could have easily just made a movie about a man molesting his son, but he decided to do it the other way around. There's something about that, the way he did it, that's like, obviously it like the inverse is horrible. It is horrific. It's like the worst thing imaginable. But somehow in this movie, the way he did it with the son sort of abusing the dad and it being like not what you expect, and a reversal of that power dynamic, it makes it way creepier and more uncanny.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I don't know if you could have done a horror version of the yeah, it's uncanny. I don't know if you could have made this as a horror film if it was the inverse, the fact that it was like kind of this almost mutual thing was the creepiest part. Yeah. I mean, it's weird because it's like in art, it's like you want to explore like all these taboos and stuff, like if possible, if that's what your goal is. But sometimes like things just, I don't know, it's weird. Like there's this spectrum where things just get so uncomfortable and so taboo and so disturbing sometimes that it's like, it's like, how good can this really be? You know, like how am I gonna? I can't say that this is like a 10 out of 10 because it's just like it's so uncomfortable. There's like no real like it's like barely entertainment value here. It's just
Yeah.
I will say one thing that I found the ending kind of disappointing. Like
I did too.
I thought there was gonna be more like nail biting moments toward the end, like they were going to build it up more, but it was just kind of like the mom being like, well, I'm going to now confront my son. And I wanted more of that discomfort we felt at the beginning where it's just like, oh fuck, don't look, don't say it, don't,
yeah,
you know,
it kind of feels like the movie bails out a little bit, doesn't it? Like it just kind of like presents you with this subject and then it like reinforces it because it shows you like more scenes of it happening, and then it just kind of goes like, well, now it's over. Like we're not like it doesn't feel like Ari really comments on it with any kind of level of depth.
Yeah.
More so, he just creates the scenario and then just kind of leaves it there. And then I feel like he just wanted to have like a shocking ending, and that's why it ended the way that it ended. It's effective, you know. Although, like I said, I don't really think he says much of anything other than just kind of just like highlighting like the absurdity of something like that happening in the first place. Even when you reverse the roles, just kind of like the disgusting element of it. But outside of that, you know, and outside of just kind of like being kind of like this shocking like thing, I don't really think the movie does anything else, honestly.
Yeah. But to give him credit, this was like a thesis film.
It was,
which
yeah.
I mean, that's pretty freaking impressive. I
mean, with
this
diehard cinematographer, he keeps working with that guy. Every movie that he's made is with that guy. What's his name? Paweł Pogorzelski. Good on him.
Nice. Yeah, honestly, Hereditary feels like warm and fuzzy compared to this short film.
Right?
Honestly, like at this point. So let's get into the warmth and fuzziness that is Hereditary. Yeah. Hereditary. Yeah, who wants to go first on Hereditary? Why don't you start us off, Jack?
Yeah, since we've been yapping about this other thing.
This was a rewatch for you, right?
Second time watching Hereditary. I think it's only the second time. I definitely seen it before, so it was a rewatch. So going into it, definitely a different mindset than the first time. Because, you know, as you guys know, kind of going into the end of the movie, there's, you know, a lot that you discover. So watching it a second time, you try to see the seeds being planted throughout the movie. I really enjoyed watching it. I think as a second time, it's still held up. I thought it was overall great, and just I don't know, it's pretty fucked up again with the way that the sister goes out, you know, hit the head on the telephone pole. There's some more sickness that is just like, I don't know, it just made me really still kind of uncomfortable with the idea that was handled the way it was. Especially with how, you know, you can kind of tell like it's like the brother never really had a confrontation with the parents, never like, you know, it was kind of weird how that was just kind of like they almost all just kind of like swept it under the rug and just tried to like keep going because it was just so terrible.
To me, honestly, that's like what felt like. To me, that was the most kind of like, wow, element of the film in the sense that it felt real. You know, like the way that they handle that. I don't know if that's kind of what you were getting at. The way that they handle that was just kind of so impactful to me because it just felt like a legitimate, real way that something like that would be handled.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, no doubt. If something like that happened, like it's like I can't imagine like you get home in the car and you walk up to your parents and be like, "Whoops, killed your daughter." Like like it's not like I don't think that's realistic. I mean, so it was just like, man, it just felt that just whole situation just felt terrible. But I think I picked up more this time on just like that family's issue with like mental health, especially on the mom side, than I did before, where it's like kind of this weird thing with her making all of those, you know, little, you know, scenes of things in her workshop. And then when she makes that scene of, you know, the car with the telephone pole, you're like, man, she is just not like well.
Yeah.
Like she's mentally just really not well. And I don't think I really totally, it stuck with me in the first one, how you know, she confessed to that, you know, lady that she met at the support group that, you know, like she woke up, you know, next to her son with like, what was it, paint thinner that they were both covered in a match. Like she was about to light them both on fire. Like I don't think I totally really understood that the first time and really like, you know, took that into account, especially when, you know, you have the scenario where she's trying to convince like the husband, like this shit's actually happening. And it's almost like Boy Who Cried Wolf, where he's like, she's crazy. Like there's been a number of things at this point where she's trying to talk to ghosts and, you know, she's clearly like not well and like, I'm out. Like I can't even believe her anymore.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think that I kind of took a little bit more of a note of those things in that progression as it went on than I did the first time. But I don't know. I really enjoyed it and kind of coming to the climax. I mean, it really escalates quickly. You know, when the son finds himself, you know, I don't know, almost accepting his fate at the end, like after all the shit that they've been through, of just like, well, hey, that's it. Like everybody's in, my whole family's dead. Like,
yeah.
What? Like, I mean, it's over. Like all these weird naked people around me. Like, I mean, it's just like, fuck it, I guess. Like, I mean, it's over. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. Definitely would give it. I forget what I rate it, but I'd probably rate it like 7 or 8 out of 10.
Yeah, I like where your mind is because that's where my mind has always been. I've watched this movie 4 times now, maybe 5. This is either the 4th or the 5th time. I watched this movie whenever I watched it for the first time. I don't even fucking remember. Like, did you and I watch it together the first time? Well, how did I watch this movie?
I think your first time watching it was with me. I think I watched it I know I watched it for the first time in theaters.
Yeah. So you and I didn't watch it together.
Yeah.
The first time.
No.
Because I know that I watched it like I think just like at our apartment, and then I watched it in Johnny Roberts' class, and I watched it with my siblings. I've watched it a handful of fucking times. Yeah, the like you said, Jack, like, you know, that stuff that happens with his sister is very impactful. I'm just gonna go with positives right now, and maybe we can get into the negatives like after I hear your side of things, Jake. This movie carries this feeling of foreboding from the very first like image. You know, there's just like this there's something unsettling about this movie. You know, like even when the movie starts at the funeral for the grandma, and she says like, you know, I'm surprised it's such a big turnout. You know, that, you know, I feel like she would be surprised. Like, you know, it tells you like this character, she didn't even, you know, it tells you like she doesn't even know who her mom is.
Yeah.
The picture that they have of her mom there is like really unsettling, like a really strange picture of her mom in that chair, you know, and like it's so unsettling just looking at the picture that they have there of her mom. We see that moment where somebody puts like lipstick on her on the body, and it's like, who is that person? You know, like I thought the implication here was that nobody really liked or knew this woman. So the Ari does a really good job of like really quickly just kind of getting you into this state of mind of being like, I don't know what's going on. You know, there's a lot of stuff that's just kind of happening and I don't know why. I really like the puppetry kind of thing that he establishes in this film from the get-go, with the zooms and the extreme wide shots of their house, you know, and the thing with the mom where she makes those miniatures. Especially when this movie starts with zooming out from the treehouse, you know, and zooming into the little miniature of the boy's bedroom, which then becomes the shot, you know, like it just smoothly transitions from a zoom to the actual like master shot of the room. Because I think thematically he's just kind of telling us like, this is a movie that's about a big picture, but we're focusing on the small details of the big picture. There's a lot of things that you guys can't see. There's a lot of manipulation happening in this film.
Yeah, huge conspiracy. He also plays with that theme, just to butt in and add to that, like he plays with that theme. I've never noticed it before until now, but in the first classroom scene where Peter is like sitting behind that girl and like kind of staring at her, like the lecture that the teacher is giving, it's about a character in a story who like has no control and is being manipulated by outside forces. And so that was like, you know, very well placed as well. Like that's something you'll definitely pick up on like a second watch. This movie's very similar to The Shining, where like I would say Hereditary is like as effective as The Shining in my opinion, where it's like with cryptic subliminal messages and symbols and all that kind of stuff.
Very, very similar to The Shining and very similar to Rosemary's Baby in the sense of like the occult, you know, and people pulling the strings behind somebody's back and, you know, it being too late at the end by the time they realize what's happened, you know. Really close to Rosemary's Baby, especially with the creepy old people stuff. But yeah, I just thought that he is so effective, Ari, like you said, at just like bringing in subliminal messages, having weird drawings or things in the background, something written in chalkboard that you just are not really paying attention to. It's like this movie is like a movie about like it's reminiscent to kind of Christopher Nolan tactics or like filmmaking and storytelling tricks in the sense of like, you know, this kind of like magician thing of like manipulation, you know, showing you something so that you don't pay attention to the other thing going on in the background. And even with the filmmaking, it's like that because at some point this movie becomes a fight of shadows of just kind of looking at dark areas of the shot, and you're like, is there something there? You know, because characters keep seeing stuff. Is there something in that corner? You know, which pays off later on in the movie when there are many things just dark in the shot, but there are things, you know, like when the mom is just in the corner in that wide of his room, you know, when then we see her kind of like sneaking back behind him, kind of like floating away from the room, or all the naked old people in the house in the final scenes where they're in the shots, you know, they're just there, you know. So very effective, you know, and very effective, this film, at just kind of making you feel like the movie's constantly just like many steps ahead of you, you know, and many steps ahead of the characters. And like it always ends this film with this kind of feeling for me of just kind of like, not, you know, it would not have gone any other way. You know, like it would not have gone. You just end up feeling like it would not have gone any other way. But the main takeaway that I took from this movie this time, too, was just like communication, just how things can be avoided if you talk to each other. You know, because the mom's body was lifted and the dad knew, and then he decided not to tell the mom. You know, he decided not to, just to withhold that information. And then with the mom, she decided to withhold from the dad the information of like where she was going all those nights, you know.
So true.
And then it just like, you know, and then that adds up to just him not trusting her at the end, where he's just like, then he thinks she was the one who stole the body, you know. So it's like, it's just so tragic, where it's just like not only were you guys being manipulated, and not only were all these like things just already put in place before you could even like know what to do about it, but the fact that you guys also lied to each other, you know, just made everything like so much worse. There's like this like avoidance activity, because it's not even lying. He didn't lie. It's just like he just avoided telling the truth, you know. Pretty fascinating, you know. There's a lot of layers to this movie. It's very admirable. I actually came out of it having a higher opinion than I ever did before, although not much more. But I want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, man. I think that's something that seems to interest Ari Aster, is the idea of like drama within families stemming from like not talking about things, sweeping things under the rug, leaving things unspoken. Like I've noticed, you know, like my household family, I think that's a big reason for like our success and why we're all very close with each other, is that we just talk about stuff. Like we've always talked about stuff. We've always been very open. We've always shared. And I will say, you know, that there's areas of my extended family where there's a lot of unspoken things. There's a lot of things just that have been left unsaid. I mean, decades, you know, not to like dish any dirt here or anything, but I mean, it's something, I think it's critical. I wouldn't be saying that unless I really wanted to make that point. Like it's so critical to not leave things unsaid, because things can be left unsaid for just years, man. And then the decades roll by, and it's just like, oh, this was never addressed, and that's it. And it can sow seeds of discord, within families. So yeah, I think you really hit the nail on the head there, man. Yeah, I'll say about Hereditary, like, I think I'm a little desensitized to this movie at this point. I've seen it too many times. Sure. I think I want to go a good at least like 10 years without seeing this movie again, honestly. Because I do not want my opinion to... I really love this film. I think it's one of the best horror films ever made. And I really just don't want... Because it's so easy to just put this movie on when you want people to shit their pants,
Right.
But I just, I can't rewatch this anymore. I'm desensitized to it, and I felt disappointed on this, because I don't think it's the movie's fault. I think it's my fault for watching it so many damn times. And this was the first time I felt that way, though, of being like, oh man, I'm not like that scared right now. But granted, I was with 2 other people when I was watching it. I do still think like this is a movie I would hesitate to put. This is on my list of like movies that I'd hesitate to put on when alone at night, Like there's several movies I'd put in there, like off the top of my head. Hereditary would be one, like Lake Mungo would be another one, Insidious, maybe The Shining I'd put in there. Maybe The Exorcist, possibly. Like, there's a list of movies that I'd be hesitant to put on at night, and Hereditary is still one. I will say, there's the shots in this movie where you were talking about things in the shadows that, like, where you're like, am I seeing that? It's almost like you woke up from a deep sleep and you're like, did I see that right? Particularly when she turns the light off and the mom's apparition is there.
Terribly creepy scene.
And the scene where at the end, that's similar, where Peter is in the living room and he looks and he sees in that closet or pantry that man standing there with a smile, who I noticed actually at the beginning at the funeral.
He's in the beginning. He smiles at them at the funeral.
Those 2 shots are scarier than like most horror movies. The entirety of Smile is like not even half as scary as just those 2 shots in this movie, dude,
that shit like that's so creepy, because it's like the movie that you and I watched last year, Skinamarink. Where there's that one shot of that movie where it's like this hazy looking face. And just like trying to make out what it is. And that shot just made that movie, And it's like, and in this movie, there's a handful of instances like that,
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah, Jack, there's this movie that came out last year called Skinamarink. I don't know if you heard of that.
I haven't seen it. I've heard of it, though.
Yeah. It's like, it was... it's very effectively creepy. It's also really boring. It's kind of like it's kind of a paradox in that sense, where like it very much recreates that feeling of waking up in the middle of the night as a child and like having to use the bathroom but being afraid to get out of bed. It's like that in movie form. The problem is it recreates that so well that you actually feel like a child, where like it's like that hour and a half also got kind of boring when you were thinking about going pee but not going pee, you know what I mean? But yeah, there's like a lot of shots in that movie that are like really freaking creepy, where it's just like little faces like in the darkness and you can just barely make it out, but so shit like that is scary. It's just like stuff that you barely see, or like, did I see that? What was that? And then it lingers. You keep thinking about it, But yeah, I mean, there's like fantastic symbolism in this scene, like you talked about with the dollhouse symbol, and like the idea that this family, they're just dolls in a house, where it's like they're just being maneuvered like chess pieces. They're this cult's playthings, the whole sequence with the brother accidentally killing his sister in a car accident is horrific. That's like the real life horror of this movie. Where it just felt similarly to The Strange Thing About the Johnsons, where it just feels so like awful, and it's like real horror, where And just when the son goes home and he rolls up, and the movie just forces you to stay with him through that whole experience. And it kills me every time when he walks in and you just hear the mom and dad in the background, like, okay, good, they're home. No. When he first gets home and you hear them in the background, like, okay, good, they're home. And then they shut out the lights. You're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Dude.
And the one thing I picked up this time too was just like, that freak accident was like, there's a couple things that like, again, could have been done to be prevented. Like, you know, somebody with a peanut allergy, send her like to go into a social function. Like, she should have an EpiPen. Like,
But it's fascinating. It's fascinating, isn't it? Because it's like that was the scene that I kind of left. I kind of got stuck thinking about it because I was like, in my head, I was trying to rationalize it because you know the little symbol for what's the name of the fucking guy in this movie? Payman. The little symbol for him is like on that thing, on that post. You know, so it really tells you that it's like one way or the other. I guess that even if she didn't eat peanuts, it was gonna happen.
Yeah,
you know?
It was like a curse, basically.
Yeah, something was gonna happen that would have still have happened anyway. And so I had to just accept that because I was like, no, that was gonna happen. Because there's an element of this movie that kind of makes you go like, you know, there's too much of, you know, everything is gonna happen, you know. But it's like you really have to go with it. But I accepted it this time around. I was like, yeah, it was just always going to happen. Like, one way or the other, like, it was just going to happen. But because also we have to accept the fact that it's like the girl in and of herself, she's just the demon, you know? Like, so she is, like, the payment guy. So it's like, well, you know, one way or another, like, the whole thing with the demon is that the demon had to leave that body. So that girl had to die, you know? Like, one way or the other, the girl had to die for the demon to get out of the host. And then for it to be then put in the boy, you know.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I love the implication too. Well, first of all, so I think it's a strong, the implication with that whole symbol on the post to me is like the cult cast some sort of like hex, you know, or curse, you know. So like if you were to curse somebody and then they die in like a car accident the next day, I feel like it's that type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that freaks me out. The implication too of when the real Charlie goes inside the mom when they're doing the seance, the implication there freaks me out because the implication is like that spirit has just been like lost, you know, like was basically given the boot out of her own body when Payman came in, and it's like, and you know how scared her ghost sounds, you know, and stuff. It's like, oh God, what have you guys done to this little girl, you know?
Yeah.
And then also one implication that I really love too is kind of like the cult's sort of like desperation in a way, because it's like they fucked up the first time, you know, they put that demon inside of Charlie, so it's like they have to like kind of fucking.
They have to correct that.
Yeah, they got to correct everything. And the whole part, too, where the mom is, like, looking in the book and you see all these old, like, drawings of, like, the demon riding, like, a camel with three heads. They're always
so creepy, those fucking things.
Yeah, it just feels so archaic, you know, when you're looking at this old grimoire. You know, it feels very just, like, biblical and archaic and creepy. But yeah, I love the mystery of this film and just kind of putting things together and all the puzzle coming together. And nothing's really, there's no moment in this movie where everything's like just spat out to the audience.
No.
There's no like villain monologue. Like there's no moment where that Joan lady says like, this is what we've been doing all along. Well, there's no Scooby-Doo mystery breakdown, you know, like there's no Scooby-Doo like recap, like, you know, and then imagine like Velma recapping this movie. So then they they carved that symbol into the telephone pole to make sure Charlie would be beheaded. Like, just imagine a Scooby-Doo breakdown of Hereditary. Let's go over negatives real quick and then we can bounce.
Well, for me, the biggest negative has always been just how long this fucking movie is. I've always felt, from the first time I watched this movie till the last time I watched this movie, that it's just like long, you know, like it's just so slow paced.
That's what my girlfriend said too. She got bored.
It's so slow paced, like it's so slow with fucking zooms, and you're just kind of like, oh God, please, like it feels 15 minutes. It feels like there are just like it just feels like it doesn't feel like there's any unessential scene, if that makes sense. Like it does feel like everything's essential.
Yeah.
The issue with it is just that it feels like it was filmed in such a way where the only way to fix it would just be to like speed up the shots.
Yeah.
Like speed them up, or just like cut to the shot halfway through the zoom, and it's like, oh, now we're cutting and we're already zooming. It just feels so fucking long and so like slow, and like you're just like staring at the movie for long periods of time, just like kind of being like, please move along. The ending of it is really impactful. The last 30 minutes are just superb, just kind of like ricocheting all the action. It's just like the first hour and 40 minutes of this movie are just kind of like, 30 minutes in, oh, there's a spook, grandma's in the corner. And then it's like 30 minutes in, and it's like, oh, the girl died.
Well, you're definitely exaggerating there, but I mean,
and that's how it ends up coming across, though, for me.
Yeah.
Where I'm just kind of like, again, like I think the girl dies like 30 minutes into the movie, but that tells you something. Like she dies 30 minutes into an hour and 2 hour into her 2 hour and 10-minute movie, and it's just like, and things don't start happening again until the last 25 minutes of the movie. So you have this like really long periods of time where it's just kind of like watching the characters like fumble and fail to be able to save themselves. That to me, it's just that. To me, it's just that, because it's like I'm not going to fault the cinematic approach with the language that he used with the cameras to tell the film. Obviously we've talked about like how clever things are, like thematically and writing wise. And one of the creepiest things to me, and why I hold Rosemary's Baby and The Shining in such high regard, has always been like occultism, and like anything that has to do with this kind of stuff, anything that has to do with like symbols and rituals and manipulation and characters just being unable to save themselves and just being in this kind of positions, But even despite that, even though this movie has like all the right mixes of everything for me to be like, this is a 10 out of 10 movie, it always just comes at like a strong 7 to a light 8. And I've had it at a 7 for years. I'm going to put it at an 8 just because I'm tired of it. I feel like this movie keeps wrestling with me just to do it, so I'm just going to do it. But it just feels like it's just so fucking slow.
We've talked about this before, and like I actually felt the length of this movie this time for the first time ever. But I'm going to say I really do think it's only because this is like my 4th time seeing this movie and I've just rewatched it too many times.
But I felt like that from the first time.
Dude, I never felt that way, man. The first, like, I remember even the third, I think it was like the third watch was in Johnny's horror class, Professor Roberts. And I never felt that way, dude. I felt like every moment of this movie was just like engaging, like, and just building. And we were always, it never feels like a wasted moment. It never felt like overly long to me.
Well, that's what I'm saying to you, though. Like, it doesn't feel like writing wise, there's like wasted scenes.
No, I know what you mean.
Just go on for so fucking long.
Yeah.
And that's also like, it's funny because when I showed my sister this movie, I hope she listens to this episode. I'll send it to her. Because this is a rare shout out for my sister. When I watched this movie, when I showed my sister this movie, I remember she was just saying to me, like, I just want to watch something really scary. And I was like, let's watch Hereditary. And at the end of the movie, she was like, oh, that's all right.
Yeah.
She's like, she was like, I was a little bored, And I told her, I was like, that's exactly how I feel. Every time I watch this movie, I'm just a little bored, Just
you don't feel that way during The Shining, though? I mean, I feel like if you...
No!
How do you feel that way with Hereditary, but not The Shining, though? Because I feel like I could see that with The Shining, like this, because it's filmed in the exact same way, where there's just like a ton of like long, drawn out shots and people just being like, "What? What? Huh? Talking to each other really slowly. I corrected them, sir.
But that's what it is, though. Like, is there a single scene from Hereditary that you could do that impression for right now?
Yeah, like a kind of classic impression,
like an iconic, like, because I feel like The
Shining,
Shining,
the dinner scene. I mean, man, come on.
but the dinner scene is like in the sense of it being like, oh, they're screaming at each other. He's like, oh, just say it,
No,
just say
dude,
what you're
that's a
thinking.
great scene, man.
I
That's
don't know.
that scene's iconic.
Well, this is what I don't think it's iconic in that sense. Like, I mean,
Nah.
this one we're debating semantics, like, but I don't think cinematically there's a single performance in that movie that is like, like what fucking Nicholson does in that movie, or what any of the characters do in that movie. Like, because The Shining feels elevated in the sense of like the performances, where they're just so strange, and this movie just feels like really realistic to the point of like, what's the point of fucking like portraying that? You get what I'm trying to say? Like it would be like you're trying to portray Daniel Day-Lewis in Lincoln. It just feels like a drama scene and not like a high-end like art scene that becomes like an iconic scene.
Yeah, I mean, I get there's like not like a Jack Nicholson of this movie. There's also not that kind of role though for this movie. I mean, I guess
that's what I'm saying. That's where I don't see the iconic like performance for it.
Dude, I thought I don't know, man.
I don't think they're on the same level, dude. I really don't think they're on the same level.
I don't know. Don't you think though that like, because I think The Shining is just as good as this movie. Like, I think they're as good as each other. Don't you think?
The Shining's better than this movie.
Don't you think though? I don't know. Like, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but don't you think there is a bit of like a recency anti-bias here, where it's like a recency bias, where it's like because The Shining is like older and more revered, and it's Kubrick, that like maybe you're giving it extra points.
Yeah, but it's it's Kubrick, so it's like, how can I not do that? Because it's like we're talking at that point, like this is like at that point, right? And it's like, I mean, I've seen this fucking movie so many times, and I've seen The Shining so many times. Like, I feel like at this point, it's like, do you think? I guess let me ask you this question: Do you think that the pedigree of Ari Aster as a filmmaker is the pedigree that Stanley Kubrick has, and
No.
his ability of being able to like not only compose a scene but then tell a story through the shots?
Oh, like, well, no, I wouldn't say as like detailed, but I mean, no, well, I don't know. I'd have to really look, because I think there's a lot of like subliminal shit and symbolism in Hereditary that's like, just as intricate as The Shining. I don't think people have dug into The Shining more and read into it more. It's older. People have had more time, but like, I mean, and I'm not trying to pick on The Shining, but I'm going to be honest, like, I don't feel that same way about The Shining, where I mean, the first 30 minutes of The Shining are pretty fucking like meh. Like, it's just kind of like, him interviewing for that hotel position and a lot of like dragging its feet. I mean, I'm playing devil's advocate here. Like, I think people like revere, I'm not accusing you of this, but maybe I am. I don't know. But like, I think older shit tends to get revered because it's like old and iconic. But like, I think we got to give like the newer stuff, like, it's fair, it's
shake.
Yeah, I guess. But I mean, it's your opinion though. But yeah.
No, I agree with you. Like, and this is what I don't think is up for contention. Like, I do believe that in terms of like kind of like the occultism that the movies are presenting, I do believe they're at the same level, or at very least very similar level.
Yeah.
Right? In the terms of in the sense of like depth,
Yeah.
Like, in the sense of depth. Maybe The Shining might still be like a little bit above it, but that's not even like the to me, that's not even kind of like the thing that makes like the differential for me. I feel like the thing that really makes the difference for me ultimately comes down to both like performance and then cinematic execution, and then the iconicness. And I know that The Shining is older, and it makes it like kind of more weathered in terms of like, I guess, like a wine that's like really like, oh, it's old, and then everything's just kind of cemented. But again, I do think that in terms of like sheer craftsmanship, Kubrick is able to elevate The Shining to an extent to where it makes up for the fact that it is a really long and kind of extensive movie, to where I feel like Ari just kind of fails. Like, I really just don't feel like he had, this is his first movie. I really just don't, like, dude, this is his first movie. Like, I really just don't feel like he had like the experience or the what do you call that, confidence to really execute this film the way that it should have, for it to really have come across as like not a boring movie. I
could
feel like
see
if
that.
he made Hereditary now, I think he could do it more justice than he did. And we have to remember that also for Kubrick, like The Shining was like his like 10th movie.
Yeah, he
So
had
there's
been
like
at it for a while.
exactly. So that's what I'm trying to say. I just feel like the levels of filmmaking are just not comparable. Even if the levels of like story and craft in terms of like layers are there, you know, if that makes any sense.
Props to Ari Aster. 'Cause I think one thing we can agree on is it's a pretty damn impressive debut film. And
Right.
Damn right.
for your debut film to be what
Yeah.
many people consider to be the scariest movie ever, or one of them,
Yeah.
pretty impressive.
And the funny thing is that I feel like in terms of like sheer scariness, it's more scary than The Shining.
Yeah.
But where I'm placing these two movies is that finally, like I said to you, I'm willing to give this movie an 8. Where I have The Shining is at a 9. It's like a 1-point difference. Like I really just do think The Shining is at the very least that much better. I don't think this movie's as good as The Shining.
I gotcha. Well, I would say they're both a 10, but hey, you know, agree to disagree, but I think we found some common ground in there.
I love that Jack has just been like very like emotively like making expressions, just watching back and forth.
Oh, I'm letting you guys do your thing.
I hope that's for the audience. I hope that when people listen to this, that's how they're going. Like, oh shit, he's saying this and this guy's saying that.
Yeah.
And then ultimately, I feel like people should feel like I'm a buffoon because ultimately they're like this guy gave the movie an 8 and a 9. Like they're both good movies.
Yeah.
It just feels like it really feels like semantics, but I hope it's fun for people because the past like 9 years that Jake and I have known each other, it's been a lot of this.
Yeah. Well, one thing I will say, I guess, just a final point, like.
Yeah, we have a couple minutes.
Yeah, right. So yeah, like scary. Also, like I think you make a good point too. With even though you think Hereditary is scarier than The Shining is still a better movie to you, and that's an important thing because I was talking about this with my girlfriend the other day. Like we were talking about horror movies, and I was like, you know, a horror movie being scary is pretty important, but it's not everything either. Like, you know what I mean? A horror movie can be a great horror movie and really not scare you. It can still be just like a great movie. Like horror to me is more than just being scary. It's like about themes, making you think, like just good plot.
Exactly.
Fuck, I forgot to talk about the book I'm reading, but we do not have time. I'll talk about it next week.
We don't have time.
Yeah.
We can't have time anymore.
But yeah, that's it, everybody. Next week, we're going to have a Halloween special to kick off October, so stay tuned for that. We're going to do something exciting for you guys. But yeah, thanks for listening.
Jack, thank you for being on this one again.
Yeah, thanks for having me again.
Everybody loves you. You're the fan favorite.
Backed by popular demand.
OP and you're happy.
Yeah.
I will
everybody,
be back.
Everybody, thanks for listening. Leave a comment, leave a like. Love ya, and I will leave you next time on Film Tangents.
See ya.